Second, 2013 Board of Selectmen meeting. If everybody would please stand, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, liberty and justice for all. Liberty and justice for all. I don't know how we got out of sync there, but we know everybody meant it. Is it delay?
It's like the inauguration. We had everything taped.
Okay, as you know, there's a little bit of a different format tonight. We've invited some of the other boards and committees in the town to meet with us and members of the community and have a discussion on the school issue after we take care of some housekeeping matters. So please bear with us. I'll start it off with announcements. There are openings on the following committees: Airport Commission, Carver Cultural Council, Commission on Disability, the BDC, Finance Committee, Old Colony Regional Vote Tech School Committee, 2 positions, Local Housing Partnership Committee, the Recreation Committee, ZBA alternate, Carver Housing Authority state representative, and a growers representative to the Earth Removal Committee. Please contact the Selectmen's office for an application. And a reminder to residents, if you could please find it within your hearts to dig down deep and donate to the food pantry at the Council on Aging or at the public library. They had a very successful holiday season, but that doesn't mean that the issues have been resolved. There's still people out there struggling, so whatever you can find within yourself to do would be greatly appreciated. There's 2 vacancies on the OCRVT School Committee. They're in great need.
That's redundant, I'm sorry.
Old Colony Regional
Yep.
Vote, that's a repeat?
It's
Okay.
already up there,
Nonetheless, it's a very important committee because a number of our children here in Carver attend that school, and it would behoove us to have representatives on those boards to make sure that Carver interests are being represented properly and our kids are being taken care of the way they should be. Appointments with possible votes. First up is an entertainment license for the Frosty Dog at 58 North Main Street. And that will be Mr. Charles F. Callen. Come on up and join us. Chuck? Take a seat at one of the mics, yeah.
Chuck Callen, 58 North Main Street, Frosty Dog. Good evening.
Good evening, Chuck. You want to tell us a little bit about what you want to do? We all know you already have a business in town, the Frosty Dog up on North Main Street there. Now, what are you looking for now?
Okay, just to clarify things, the Frosty Dog is not just an ice cream place, okay? We have a full kitchen, and we've had a full kitchen. We've been in business for 30 months. So the next time somebody comes to me and says, hey, you only have ice cream here? Please, stop in, tell your friends, neighbors. I know we've had thousands of people from the Carver area come in and enjoy themselves at the Frosty Dog. But what I'd like to do is, right now I have the 30-game arcade, 9-hole miniature golf, and some pool tables. And I want to encompass larger groups. There's no place in the town. There's no place in the town of Carver to have a larger gathering. I have a capacity of about 157 people for my entire building. So what I'd like to do is put on some dances. I've started having karaoke nights, and we have it the first and third Saturday of the month, and we've been getting a lot of families and kids coming up and participating in the karaoke. So I want to do some dances. I'd like to do some. We had a few Christmas parties this year. I'd like to incorporate, like the different sports teams, the Pop Warner football, the basketball. I mean, where there are larger groups that could come up, eat, have an ice cream, and have some entertainment. So that's kind of the idea of the entertainment license.
Make a motion, we approve.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Chuck, I just wanted to ask, hours of operation, is that 11 a.m. to 12 a.m.? Or it just says 11 to 12?
11 to 12.
11 in the morning till
Till
12 at night.
12
Yeah.
noon? Or
12, no, 12 at night.
Oh.
No, yeah, no.
just checking.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, yeah. Pardon me,
Well,
yes.
sure.
Will there be alcohol?
There won't be, but after 30 months in business, and probably, again, thousands of people have come to me, and because we serve a menu of fried clams, fish and chips, burgers, hot dogs, almost every parent had asked me, at some point, are you going to get a beer and wine license? So I've been pondering that for the last 30 months, and I'm looking into coming in front of the board again in about a month to apply for a beer and wine license. Again, to be in conjunction with food and to be able to offer it to the parents. Not being a parent, I never realized how important at the end of the week when mom and dad take their kids out that maybe a glass of wine or a glass of beer is important. So I kind of overlooked that. Shame on me, but hope to correct that.
A glass of wine or a beer after a week with the kids?
Yeah.
I mean, a couple of bottles of wine in there.
Well, yeah.
No, well, personally speaking, I've been to Chuck's establishment. He runs a good place up there. The food's good, and you certainly have a lot of room there. And I think that you haven't been maximizing the opportunity up there, and this is a great way to expand your operation. So,
Right, yes. Yeah.
And myself
Jack?
too, I've been up there, and as I always do with all the businesses in town, we have a lot of great businesses in town. I'd like to see more of our residents patronize them, because as tax collector, I know if you patronize them, they'll keep their taxes up to date.
No, I support you, Chuck. I think, and I want your business to succeed, so, great.
Yeah. No, I can't thank the select people for what they've done, the town of Carver. In this economic time, as we all know, and we're all facing it, it's very difficult, and it's difficult for every family out there. So, every little bit, you might not think it's much, but, just bringing your kids by for an ice cream or a lunch at some point could help us out tremendously up there. And we're fighting hard. This winter is a very hard time. And, my season really picks up in April, but, you got to get to April to stay in the ball game. So that's what we're trying to do right now.
Helen?
Not to help Chuck market his own company, but he's failing to mention that on Wednesday nights, he has a free Black Night mini golf, so everyone can come down to experience Frosty Dog for themselves without having to invest a dime.
Yeah.
And the menu I will also add to, because I have my office hours every Saturday, so I'm running out of things to eat when I go there, because I was always getting the chili, and I finally looked at the full menu, and I got a scallop and salad, a salad with scallops on Saturday, and I even asked, can you get them broiled, because that wasn't on the, absolutely, and it was less than $10. So the menu is incredible, and I never really even noticed it because I was always just getting the awesome chili. So
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And again, it's it's tough times out there, so anything would be greatly appreciated. And tomorrow night is free blacklight mini golf from 4 to 8, so you can bring your kids up. And I might even, because it's going to be about 2 degrees out, I might even do a special on ice cream. So we'll see.
Hot ice cream.
How about hot chocolate?
Yeah, hot chocolate.
All right, any further questions from the board? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Okay.
Good luck, Chuck. We'll be seeing you up there.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, next up is Eagle Scout project proposal, and we have Chris Belbin. Come on up, Chris. Did you want to come up with him, Mr. Sheehan?
Very close.
He's good on his own? Okay. All right, Chris, tell us what's going on.
Okay, first of all, my name's Chris Belbin, and I live at 26 Gate Street. And I'm beginning to work on my Eagle Scout project, which I plan to have being work on 0 Wade Street. And as far as I know of, it needs a lot of mending and care to it because a lot of trash and objects have been left there that really shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Okay, so you're ready to go?
I got most of it done. I need to have all the approval done before I can send it off to council, and then they can approve it.
Okay. Do we have a motion on this?
I make a motion, we approve.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any questions by the board?
He put pictures in here, I don't know if anyone had a chance to
Yeah.
look
Yeah, I have a
at that
few
package.
pictures. They're the
Some of the
major
stuff
items
that's
that
up
were
there.
left.
May I?
Go ahead, Helen.
Chris, you mentioned in the letter you wrote that you would like a contact person from the Selectmen and/or the Town Hall.
Yes,
Have you
I-
found that person yet?
No, it doesn't really matter who. It's just someone that I can rely upon to ask questions and have concerns answered about it, so that I'm not flying blind during it. So, like, if I want to ask them, what would you prefer to have me do, or what would you like to have done, I could take an input.
His name is Rick LaFond.
Okay.
I'll nominate him, okay?
I'll
Okay.
second it.
And he'll probably delegate it down to Elaine, so you're sitting next to the person that you can.
Okay.
All right, any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I was just wondering, since our 6:50 appointment with the redevelopment authority is to discuss the purpose of surveying and soil sampling, I'm just wondering, I mean, if the redevelopment, it sounds like the redevelopment authority thinks that there's a reason to sample the soil up there, and I guess, I don't know whether it's a good idea for us, if they're going to be sampling, if they find something there, contamination or whatever. I mean, I just didn't know how you wanted to deal with that in terms of having Eagle Scouts on the property.
Why don't we have a representative from the redevelopment authority come up here?
Is anybody here from the RDA?
Ryan?
Come on up. Brian? I know we've been playing phone tag, Brian, but we'll catch up one of these days. All right, why don't you just give us a little perspective from the RDA on,
The RDA wants to go out and have samples done on the soil.
you know, speak into the mic so the folks can hear
I
you.
didn't realize it wasn't, is it on? Yep, okay. Can you hear me okay?
You have to be really
Okay.
close to it.
Yeah,
You could pick
The
it up, too.
RDA wants to go out and do some soil sampling. We have got a couple of prices between $2,000 and $4,000. And that all precipitated from the meetings we had, I would say, was it October, November timeframe, where we were discussing the property and what was going to be done with it, whether it was going to go into a trust or be sold. And what we ended up deciding was we wanted to do the sample, the soil samples for that piece of property to make sure that, you know, everything was as it should be. So make sure there wasn't any contaminants on it. So that's where we stand right now. We do have a subcommittee. I'm on the subcommittee with Bob Belbin and through the RDA, and I was asked to come here tonight in his stead because he's out of town, so.
okay. I think what you're trying to do, Chris, is you're just trying to clean the surface, right?
Yes, we're
The
trying
trash
to
that's
clean the
floating
main
around in the-
surface, including
Right,
many of
and
the
junk
debris
that's on-
such
on
as
top, not
wood and
do any digging
a
or
lot of
anything
metal.
else. So,
Mr. Chairman?
yes,
At the time, it had been alleged that there was pollution up there when it was in the redevelopment authority's hands, and we gave it back to the town, and we just felt it was only right for the redevelopment authority where we had the funds to go back and check it when we were thinking of creating that trust. So we wanted to offer that to the town, and we need your permission to go onto the property. That's what Brian's here for.
Correct.
does anybody see a problem with the scouts in there? I mean, you guys wearing gloves and stuff?
Yeah, it would be under all safety to have eye
Okay.
protection and
Mr.
gloves
Chairman?
on so that no
Yes,
rot
Mr.
wood
Wood.
or anything.
Chris, is there any,
Good.
when do you folks plan to start this, Brian?
This would be sometime in the late spring and early summer.
Oh, I was thinking of the testing. I mean, would you be done by when Chris is starting his
I would
major
think-
project?
I would think yes, because, you know, we have to consider, you know, we got a frost now that we'd have to break through.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how they're gonna do this, but, you know, I would imagine they're gonna core down to a certain level, and they haven't told us, you know, how many samples they were gonna take, because we've only had one meeting as a subcommittee, but our plan is to get it done as soon as possible, so that way Bob's son can go in there and do what they need to do. So,
I've walked it pretty extensively, because I was checking when the RDA was thinking of selling it to the Makepeace Company, and it is a lot of superficial things that's been there a long time, since the builder built that development. A lot of it, it's old wood and old stuff. But anything on the surface, I mean, if you start pulling things out and you see some barrels or something that are below the surface, but I didn't see anything that indicated
Yeah.
that. But that could be the case, but I was just trying to figure, if you could get a timeline, Chris, that hopefully they're done, and then go in there
Yeah,
and boom.
it could also be postponed into the like early fall time period if it needs to be. So we're in no rush at the moment to
Yeah.
get it done.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Rick doesn't know, but we appointed him to be the contact person for the Boy Scout. So maybe you could coordinate between the two of them as the timelines for getting
Jack, they
things
can't
done.
hear you. You got to speak into the mic.
I don't recall volunteering for that, Jack. Did I
You
volunteer
weren't
for that?
here.
Well, I think two things that, Chris, you can probably coordinate with Brian.
Most certainly.
And then if there are any issues, contact Mr. LaFawn's office, and they will make sure that we are apprised of that.
Thank you.
And we can jump in and assist you with whatever you need, okay?
Thank you.
and also, could I add, I live across the street from the property, so if you have any problems over there, just knock
Yeah.
on my door, and, you can always reach out to me.
I'm
too.
sorry, but I just can't hear you.
Excuse me?
I just can't hear you.
Oh.
Yeah, the mic, the speakers are
You can pick it up if you
Going
need
that
to.
way.
Speakers are
so-
weird here.
so,
Evidently, you gotta be really
Yeah?
close.
right, yeah.
How about now? Am I okay?
That's better.
Okay. What I was saying was I live right across the street from it, so if you need any help, whatever, just let me know. Your father knows me, so
Yeah.
we can work together on it. No big deal.
Yeah.
Well, how about if we have a vote to approve this contingent upon the fact that there's no safety hazards or anything like that?
Approve Chris, Brian's
Yeah, no, approve
Motion.
Chris's.
motion to, I thought I already motion. Motion to approve?
Well, with
Brian's.
With Mr. O'Donnell's amendment.
With the caveat, the amendment that
You have
there's no
that?
safety issues involved,
So
okay?
moved.
Do you have that-
Second.
Do you have that, Elaine? Okay, so there was a first on that, Jack, by you?
Yes.
There was a second by Dick. Any further discussion on this issue here? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Good luck, and thank you. Thank you for your community service. We need more of that.
Thank you.
How about Brian's?
Well, while Brian's up here, any problem with us just taking care of this now, Rick?
No, sooner the better.
Okay.
Make a motion? I'm not going to make a motion because I'm going to abstain.
You're going to abstain from this, Jack, because you're on the RDA, right? Okay, the Redevelopment Authority requesting access to Zero Wage Street property to engineering firms in order to solicit quotes for the purpose of surveying and soil sampling. Do I have a motion on that?
I'll make the motion.
I have a motion. How about a second?
I'll second.
We have a second on it. Any further discussion?
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Jones?
I'm going to take your example. Brian, I wanted to ask whether or not the people that you're getting quotes from, have they told you what kind of sampling they're doing? Are they doing grab sampling? Are they doing cross-sectional sampling? Because it will matter, and I know the grab sampling's a lot cheaper, but you don't get the information is not as useful.
I don't think we've delved that far in so far. Bob has just looked for prices so far, and we've only met once. So
Can't hear you, I'm sorry.
There's an echo in this system. It's just very difficult to hear.
Bob has only, he's only looked for the prices. He hasn't really, Mr. Belbin hasn't really given any more information than it's a $2,000 or a $4,000 price. So we haven't really looked into what type of sampling it was going to be, because the companies that he had reached out to had asked us how many acres do we want and how many samples do we want, and the type of sampling would depend on how far we were going to go, as far as like, we're going to do 3 acres or the whole 6, and I believe we're going to do the 3, so the price depends on that, and the testing depends on that. So I think there's more to come on that.
I'm sorry?
I believe there might be more to come. We got to get more information before we can answer that particular question.
I'm just having a lot of trouble hearing you. I don't know, can you hear me okay, Brian?
I think it's a stage, Liz, just the echo up here.
What it is the sound's going out through the
Yeah, it's
speakers,
going
so I need to turn one around so you can hear it.
Okay.
Okay.
Can everybody out in the audience hear us?
We can't hear ourselves.
I know. We're all looking like, I was going to pick up the mic and.
We've been accused of not hearing things before, too, right? So,
Well,
Some of my best comments, nobody's heard.
so, oh, that's different. So at any rate, I just wanted you to be aware that if someone comes in with you need to be sure. The grab sampling is going to mix up soil samples, and so you won't really be able to identify exactly which part it's from. But if you do it specifically for this site and you do a cross-sectional, I think that's the right word, I may be wrong on that, then you know exactly that if that comes up with contamination, you know exactly where it was from. So, but it is more expensive. I didn't know if you guys were.
No, we haven't asked that question yet, and we haven't determined, now we're gonna get feedback. We haven't determined whether or not we were gonna go with the grid or with the other sample, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's right. It's just good to know.
well, Brian, maybe when you get your quotes or something, maybe you might want to run that by Ms. Hewens.
Certainly.
Since she seems to have a background in that, and maybe could
Okay.
give you a little bit of input on that, so. Any other questions from the board? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous.
I abstain.
One abstention. 401.
I'm on the redevelopment authority. A lot of people indicate they can't hear.
Brian, good luck. Keep us posted on that, will you?
Will do. Thank you very much.
That's going to be important, because we want to put that in trust for the residents. We certainly don't want to saddle them with some major issues, you know what I mean?
Correct. And thank you very much, and we'll talk about that, I guess, at another time. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, next up, the reappointment of John D. Kelly as constable.
Motion we approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
And we have a second. Hello there, Mr. Kelly. How are you? Is this the final term? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion about Mr. Kelly's appointment? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. All right, John, good luck. Okay. Almost 7 p.m. We're scheduled for a discussion with the school committee, the finance committee, and capital outlay committee regarding the elementary school. We should also have members of the building study committee here in the audience too.
And the finance committee's done that.
Come on, FinCom. Capital outlay, I see Mr. Clark in the audience. Ron, you going to join us up here? Or if we're going to get hit with tomatoes, you can join us.
Well, he was going to throw them.
Mr. Chair, I don't notice the Building Study Committee on the agenda.
No, I invited them.
They don't have,
It was good, Paul. It was good. We got him.
They open it.
Me too. It's a new year. Let's hope.
well, we have a seat up here if you want.
Hey, Steve.
Saved this for you. Right here. Just for you.
Are you going to see? Yeah. Jack Hank called me, said he was in bad shape. Any more room here? Yeah, he's good. Cheers, we got. I can speak Bradley. I can. Really, I'm going to encroach a little bit. Space here. For America. Find a person to sit next to.
Fran, can you hear us up back there? Okay. I just want to welcome, everybody. It's nice to see everybody out. Please speak directly into the mics so that everybody in the audience can hear us. This discussion and possible vote to place a non-binding question on the ballot for annual election in April and to support the filing of a new statement of interest with the MSBA. I think what we'll do is we'll start it off with the school superintendent and school committee.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I need to officially call the school committee meeting to order.
Okay.
I would like to officially call the school committee meeting to order.
Well done. No, you have to speak really significantly into the mic. If it's even this far away, you can't hear anything.
Are we registering now? How's that? There we
Much
go.
better.
I would like to officially call the school committee meeting to order.
And Liz, are you going to kick it off, or is Lance going to?
I'm
Okay.
just waiting for what you would like. I would like to begin this evening by making a public statement about my opinions. Is that from the very first day I took this job, this was already in motion, and I've always said I want the building that the community will vote for. And I absolutely have no preference on design, no preference on where it's built. But once we got accepted for schematic design in the MSBA process, we had to carry forward with the one the building committee and the community members that had come to the forums had selected. So all the way through the last failed non-binding referendum, there wasn't an opportunity to change plans. Going forward with a new statement of interest, the purpose of which, this is in a letter from MSBA, submitting an SOI is the critical first step in the MSBA's program for school building construction, addition, renovation, and repair grants. It allows districts to inform us about deficiencies that may exist in a local school facility and how those deficiencies inhibit the delivery of the district's educational program. And because we already submitted one, this is our previous statement of interest, which, I don't know, almost 300 pages, which documents all the structures in the building, their current conditions, and what we view as a school committee and through our two different feasibility studies, what engineers and architects viewed as the problems that existed in the current structures. And very briefly, you all have this in front of you, and I won't read it to you, but I just want to hit the highlights. Is in the fall of 2005, the school committee and the then superintendent, Dr. Patty Grenier, convened a space needs committee to determine the condition and future needs of the school buildings. And this chair of this committee was Barry Strusky, an interested parent and a Carver citizen. In winter of 2006, they selected a company through a bidding process, King Scott, which is located in Michigan, and employs architects and engineers, and one of their purposes is to do facilities audits of school buildings. They also design and build other things, but school buildings in particular. They gave us the best bid, and with our extraordinary maintenance budget, it was under our $45,000. I believe it was right around $29,000, $30,000. They audited every building, and at the time, we still owned the small building in South Carver. So all of the buildings were audited according to their condition, and it's a big report, which we, I wasn't part of it yet, but they made a report in May and June of 2006 to the school committee, concerned citizens. They had an open hearing at the school committee meeting and the Space Needs Committee to report on the conditions of our building. And after that, the MSBA was getting ready to open up its funding. The funding was from the former School Building Authority. That funding built this school, the addition to the Governor John, but they were closed down for a 5-year period because they were absolutely broke. And so after 5 years, in the fall of 2007, the newly formed Massachusetts School Building Authority, or the MSBA, opened up an invitation for statements of interest. Having done the facilities audits, the school committee, and by then I was your superintendent, and the Space Needs Committee came to the Board of Selectmen and said, would you support submitting a statement of interest for the buildings in Carver, particularly the Governor John Carver building and the Irwin K. Washburn building, because we deem them the highest priority. And it went forward, and much to our shock, in December we were accepted into the first pipeline of over 400 applicants. 423 statements of interest were submitted, and only 49 were invited to the feasibility study phase. And although we had 2 buildings, they told us we could only apply for 1. So we picked the Governor John because it was the oldest and the most needs of imminent repairs. However, in our cover letter, we asked for a 1-building solution for a 2-building problem. And again, much to our surprise, when we went to talk to them and about the feasibility study and its requirements, they said to us, we agree, you need a 1-building solution for a 2-building problem. And of the 49 other communities that were only going to get 1 project, except for Rockland, they had a middle school and a high school in a state of deterioration, and they gave them a 1-building solution for a 2-building problem. And last fall of 2011, they opened their middle high school, which is 1 building to replace their 2 deteriorating buildings. So things were going pretty well. We followed all the rules and regulations, which on legal paper, this is the Mass School Building Authority rules and regulations and statute that you have to follow, and then they have their own processes. So although we were able to do the feasibility study without borrowing money, we were able to determine that Carver was able for 56.2% reimbursement guaranteed. There are extra points that you can earn through the schematic design process. So of the feasibility study, $250,000, we were reimbursed for 56.2%, except for some, they won't pay for any attorney's fees. So even though you have to have an attorney when you're signing off on a project, they do very little for this part of the project, that they didn't reimburse, but everything else was reimbursable. We then went forward, our feasibility study was accepted, and we went forward. We were accepted and asked to submit a schematic design, which is a more detailed project. And we began working on that, even though we did not get an approval at the first vote in October of 2009 for funding of a schematic design. We began to think about how we would do that. We went to the meetings in Boston so they could tell us what to do. And then after the first failure, the parents formed a committee, and we got it back on the ballot in January, where it failed again by 113 votes. And we had 51% of the voters at that election, so it was a highly attended election. Eventually, we were approved to do schematic design under the levy limit, and went forward and hired an owner's project manager and an architect, which is a big process with MSBA. They come to the table with you. They have 15 votes. Town of Carver has 3. But we were lucky. We were able to select a local, well, the company is in Boston, Daedalus, but our local Carver resident, Joe Sullivan, was our owner's project manager, and we figured he had a double investment. First, they do very well in their schools, and their job is oversight, to make sure that the architects are doing their job and to make sure you're getting the best for your dollar. And then they work directly on the site when you start building your building to make sure they use the proper materials and they deliver the right stuff. So they're a very important piece. In all of this time, we had loads of community meetings and forums. We asked them to bring us designs, conceptual designs that fix the things that were wrong with our buildings. So they gave us 17 options. The then building committee asked for 5 more. So we ended up with 22 options, A through H, and there was A1 and 2, B1, 2, 3, E2, E1, 2, 3, 4. So there was many options under several designs. And after shopping 3 of these designs, B3, E2, and H was all new construction on a new site. B3 and E2 were renovation additions. We were encouraged by the people at the final forum for accepting a schematic design to go forward with B3 for 2 reasons. It was the most cost-effective, and there was a good number of people at that time who wanted to preserve the presence of the Governor John building on the site in the center of town. That was really important to people who came to us. And at that time, in 2009, B3 was $299 a square foot with 57% renovation. E2 was $288 per square foot with 63% reno, but it did not preserve the Governor John. Thank you. You saved me, Kevin. In H, new construction was $360 a square foot with 0% renovation. So the building committee at that time, and it's legislated who is on the building committee. It has to be the town administrator. Usually it's the chair of the Board of Selectmen, chair of the school committee, the superintendent. I don't know why I can't talk. Selected B3 to take to the people for a vote. And then we came to a special town meeting where we got permission for a non-binding and a debt exclusion. Then we had the non-binding, which was a special rule for Carver since we'd had 2 failed votes. Really, you get kicked out after that. But they decided they'd give us one more chance. And then in April of 2011, the non-binding failed by under 40 votes. So we had one more chance because we had had debt exclusion in our back pocket. And we came to the Board of Selectmen in May and asked to put the debt exclusion on in June to see. It was somewhat thought that, thank you, that people didn't understand the purpose of the non-binding referendum, so that perhaps people would get behind a debt exclusion. And by this time, the estimate for the cost of building B3 was $45.1 million, because we've now been at this since 2005, and over time, the cost estimates differ. When they get a cost estimate, MSBA does one, the owner's project manager does one, and the architect does one. Then we all sat down at a table and agreed what the MSBA would accept to reimburse, and it was the $45.1 million. And there is, by statute, a required number of square feet you have to build for a building, which on average for an elementary school is 145. That's what's in there, but some of your classrooms have specific requirements, like kindergarten classrooms have to be about 200 square feet bigger than regular first through 5th grade classrooms. So our first design for B3 wasn't big enough to meet the MSBA requirements, so they went back and added a few square feet in the library and a few square feet in the cafeteria to meet the minimum requirements. But in the end, the Board of Selectmen decided it was just time to take a break from the school building project and did not put on a debt exclusion. So the Carver School Committee took some time off from this too. And we did not go forward with any more statements of interest in the fall. But we did decide to hire a survey company. When the police and fire initiative failed, they did a survey and trying to figure out why it failed. So we decided we would do that. And we rent the building to the YMCA and bring in income there, and we use the building revolving fund to pay for a survey. And we got the results. We published the results. We had 2 forums to talk about the results and for people to give us more input. And that all took place from the spring of 2012 to the fall of 2012. And in the interim, we went to the Board of Selectmen and said, could we just start the conversation again? This was in October and November. And they said yes, they would be happy to. And so we did meet twice, one at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, one at the elementary school. And then the tragedy in Newtown, Connecticut happened. And people became very concerned about their children in this building, even though we're well aware that perpetrators are going to get in if they want to get in. But it did bring to the attention of the young families in Carver that something has to be done about our buildings. So now I'd like to see if School Committee Chair Lance Kennedy wants to say anything, and then Amanda, who was representing the parents, is here too. And then, of course, you can ask us questions.
Well, once again, good evening, guys. Thank you for coming this evening on this topic that, as we see, has been discussed for many years, even prior to me being a Carver citizen. And I appreciate the work that Liz did to kind of remind us of where we've been. But in a way, I want to kind of put that aside, because with some of that brings a lot of positives and a lot of negatives in this community. And as much as we need to be reminded, we need to look forward. And now's the time that we need to do that. And I think it's important that this is the reason we've come together tonight, to try to look forward, to make the steps that we need to do, to make the decisions as elected officials and those appointed in this community. We've got the tough task of deciding and helping lead through the support of the citizens of this community of where we need to go with this project. As we've seen, the economy has not changed over that time. In fact, it's gotten worse since we started this project. Where we're going, we don't know. But we do have some tough decisions to make. As we've seen recently in the unfortunate, tragic situation in Connecticut, the focus on our schools has been heightened. There has been a lot of discussion as to the safety of the schools. The prior discussion was really about the educational deficiencies, the structural deficiencies, and now we're dealing with the safety deficiencies and the potential there. So as a community, I do feel it is an important time that we do bring this topic back in the forefront. Again, it's a topic that's a difficult one, and one that will require some difficult decisions as a community. So really, it's important, and I encourage dialogue this evening on this topic, because I think it's important that dialogue takes place. So with that, I'll kind of leave it up to any questions, and I know we've got a
Why don't we let Ms. Wentworth speak for the parents, and then we'll open the questions up to the board.
Do I have to state my name and address? Okay, so it's Amanda Wentworth, 31 Weston Street. Liz talked about a group of concerned parents who came to her after they...
Amanda, excuse me, you might want to pick the mic out of this and hold it real close.
There we go. Okay. Liz talked about a group of parents, or a large group of parents that came to her after the tragedy that happened in Newtown, Connecticut. And I think the majority of those parents were parents who had come forward in the past. But we had a large group of new parents who were unaware of the situation in the school. So having said that, you know, really, we came to you 2 weeks ago tonight to see if we could get this non-binding question back on the ballot for April 2013. And I know there's a group of us that have taken a lot of time away from our families, away from our jobs, to really look into this. We didn't make a rash decision to just say we're going to come forward and this is what we want. We have met with Liz. We have met or spoken to with almost every member on the board, looked into our budget. We've looked into just about everything, whether it was me or somebody else in the group, and other ways that we could fund this or what could be done. And really, it's come down to that, that this is the way that it needs to be done, is to use the MSBA's help and to get this project done. So we're back here tonight to see if the board is going to vote to put that question on the ballot for April 2013 and to answer any questions that everybody has and putting everybody together. So having said that, I don't know if anybody else has anything that and to submit the statement of interest. Thank you, Liz, sorry. And to submit the statement of interest back to the MSBA so we can try to get ourselves back in the pipeline. From the discussions that I've had in the community over the past 2 weeks, it seems that everybody wants the same thing. Nobody's denying that we need a new school, and everybody has made that very clear. It just, for me personally, seems that everybody wants a new school, but they all want it their way. And that's just not possible. You can't do it everybody's way. We can't make everybody happy doing this. For me personally, I wish people would take a step back and look in that this is about the children. And this is about them and their education, and that they're safe in their environment, that they're spending 6 hours a day away from their home in. So as much as everybody thinks that there's a certain way that it needs to be done, we need to come up with a way that everybody can agree on. And in order to do that, everybody's going to have to bend a little. It's not going to be one person's way or another person's way. Everybody's going to have to bend to make this work. And I just want to remind everybody, like I said, that this is about, the children. And it isn't about anybody's egos or things, not being done the way that you suggested or that you would want done. That's really all that I have to say. I don't know if anybody has any questions or if anybody else has anything. We're very open to any ideas anybody has, but having said that, we've looked into most of the ideas that people have come forward with, and we're meeting a lot of dead ends. So unfortunately at this time, well, not unfortunately, but at this time we're just asking for the non-binding question to get put on the April 2013 ballot. And from there, we can, take the summer and look into some, any options or any ideas anybody has. But we have a deadline that we need to meet with the MSBA, getting the statement of interest into them. So we're asking for that non-binding question to be put on the April 2013 ballot.
Thank you. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to open questions to members of the Board of Selectmen. Go ahead, Ellen.
Just a couple questions. I don't know if this works or not.
You got to hold it up closer.
Really close? Ooh, ooh.
Yep, right on top.
Liz, in regards to the timeline that you put together, thank you for doing that. Back in October and November, we talked about the Board of Selectmen and the school committee getting together, and we came to your meeting. And we had a lengthy discussion because we had been making a lot of progress already before the Newtown tragedy about getting the school as a #1 priority in the town. And we were working to form a group to bring all these parties, as a matter of fact, the capital outlay, the finance committee, and the building planning committee and the school committee together to discuss the different alternatives that we had on the board prior, and to re-investigate a smart, financially smart way to get all the residents to vote yes. Lance, I believe we left off that you were going to think through more who should be on that task force, and we were going to have another meeting. So I guess my first question is to Liz is, why has this positive path stopped?
Well, it hasn't. It's just It's just begun, and I think we have to be doing that in parallel with submitting the statement of interest and the non-binding. Now, we could wait all the way till next year. In some years, they open the pipeline in November and close it in December. And a couple of years, they've opened it in January and closed it in February. Now, this year, they've given us January to April. Because, again, the whole purpose of the statements of interest has nothing to do with the plan you're going to follow. It's not which school you want or how you want to fund it or where you want to put it. It's submitting a statement of interest is the critical first step in the MSBA's program for school building construction, addition, renovation, and repair grants. It allows districts to inform us about the deficiencies that may exist in a local school facility and how those deficiencies inhibit the delivery of the district's educational program. And because we had 2 failed votes, just to submit the statement of interest, we have to have a non-binding referendum, which the community is saying, let's go forward, let's get in the pipeline, and let's talk about it. Because the choices we have after we submit the statement of interest is trash everything we did before and start over. Or use what we can, what we did before, and figure out a smart way to fund it. Or start completely and follow the plan we already did, which is pretty clear that most people don't want to do that. So it's a gate that opens the door that allowed us to simultaneously to spend a year talking about what we want. Because a vote for a debt exclusion, the earliest would be December or January of 2014. So we can run a simultaneous process of looking at every option, both for the structure of the building and for the place you want to build it, and also the way you want to fund it. But that's totally separate from the statement of interest. Just holds us a place in the money, in the reimbursement. So they will tell us, if we chose to go back to the same site, there would be fewer things we had to redo. But if we go to a new site, we'll have to do a new investigation for septic and well and geology and traffic. Those are the main things that would have to be done at a new site. And under the guidance of an owner's project manager and an architect, because they have to tell you how much the building's going to stress the land, et cetera. So, but it's not exclusive. It's not, we're rushing forward to do this, but we still want to talk about it. It's a tandem process.
Well, and if I can address that as well, Helen, it is something, looking at this, and I was in agreement with you, I think the progress that has been made to kind of rewrite the story is a positive one, and we want to continue that process. And really is just right now about timing. And looking at the timing process of when this is due, the work that it would be to redo the statement of interest and the time frame that it would require the staff to get that done. Also, not that we're attributing it to, but Connecticut does get you thinking and gets the conversation going a little bit. So kind of not forcing us, but making us to look at the timeline to say, are we going to be able to meet those needs? And to Liz's point, as the things that were shared to me, if I felt like the financial decision, which to us seems to be the important one as a community, if that was a rushed decision, then I would second guess that. But I think at this point, to me, the statement of interest is really just showing our struggles and getting us back in the pipeline. So, which is why I felt like we wouldn't be kind of stopping the progress that we were making before.
Did it answer your question? Yes.
Jack?
And I thought that the prior statement of interest has expired, so we have to do a new statement of interest.
Well, we have to take them from the point it expired to the present day. We don't have to go back and redo all of this, but I have to look at, they did another engineering study in 2011, so the MSBA did, so I have to include that information here. Any repairs, upgrades, or maintenance we've done to the building, since then, and they get down to the bids you got, how much you spent on it, what was the warrant that produced the payment, and purchase order, et cetera.
And basically, and you would give me a 3-page letter the MSBA had sent to you, and they said that to get back into the statement of interest, they'd take the old statement of interest that's online and repopulate all of those, and then it would be up to the committee, the building committee or yourself to edit all of that.
Right, well, what I would do is take it forward. This was prepared in 2007. So I have to take it forward from 2007 to 2013. All that stuff, I just have to add the information. But this was submitted in 2007, so there's 6 years of data I have to put in there.
Is that all, Jack? Sarah, you have anything?
Did that answer your question, Jack?
Thank you. I wanted to thank, first of all, the parents group for stepping forward. It's unfortunate what sparked everyone's interest, a tragedy, but I also wanted to thank Liz for pointing out that that this non-binding referendum question is a totally separate issue from how we're going to fund it.
Completely.
And especially since that question isn't even on the agenda, I probably shouldn't even go there. Because that is a discussion that will take place down the road. And I just wanted to stress that to anyone who wasn't clear on that this is it just happened that these parents came along at a time when the MSBA was willing to accept the Carver rule, which is this non-binding question that needs to be voted on, I think. Thank you.
I just need enough time to prepare it because 2007, this took me about 3 months working with the business manager, and again, of course, I would work with Pat. But now we've got this many more years down the road. It's going to take me a long time to put this together, so I can't do it in a week.
Dick?
If this non-binding question were to be put on the ballot, and if it passed, we would be looking, the next major step would be the debt exclusion in December 2013 or December 2014, roughly a year from right now. Now, the committee that you were talking about, what was the name of that committee, Helen?
Town Building Study.
The town
Town Building Study Committee, a group. If we were to put this on the ballot tonight, could that town study committee start working?
They can start working even if we don't put it on the ballot, but we wouldn't be in the funding pipeline. So it seems to me that since it will take us well over a year to get to a debt exclusion, well over a year, that we spend this...
You're talking like March 2014.
Right. Well, if we went forward with the same plan we had before, we would probably not have to redo everything from feasibility or schematic design, because some things just don't change. But if we decide in this townwide committee that we want to do a different building on a different place, then we have to go back and do feasibility and schematic design. I mean, it's just a process, because they have to, this is the record of my correspondence with MSBA over three and a half years. So there's just a lot of meetings that we have to go to and meet with them, and they approve things.
Been with you on a couple of those meetings
You
in
were
Boston.
with me. We went we rode the train and we rode in the van. But, so the whole purpose in doing a simultaneous process is no matter which path we choose, start over or start from someplace where we were before, we will be in the pipeline for funding. And the other thing is, we can go and decide to do something that the MSBA won't approve. So if they're not part of the process, we risk not being funded, because it's you have to play by their rules if you want their reimbursement. And, they're onerous, these rules, let me tell you. But some things we can't decide, like picking a new site without some engineering and architectural advice. So, and if we do that, then the MSBA is not going to accept it unless they approve our architect. So the idea is, if going forward without the MSBA's help, we could do a whole lot of work and they still wouldn't fund our project.
I'm looking at it, most people feel at one level or another we need a new school. We need to look back in the history so that we don't make the same mistakes.
I agree.
But if we polarize, we aren't going to get there.
No, we
So
won't.
we need to have this school study committee work together. And so there are a lot of questions that I have on both sides. Where would you give? Where would you give? And where can we come together? And then where is the state, the Mass School Building Authority, going to take us? But my feeling is we should be, as a town, even from a business sense, not an education sense. I mean, an education sense is no question. When you go to the meeting that we had for a couple of weeks ago on security, there was no heat in that gym. Everybody had their coats on. The heater wasn't working. I'm picturing the kids in the classrooms with their coats on at some point. That's an optimum situation for learning. But I mean, the business part of it, we got to come together, and it makes good sense to me to take money from the state to get that to go forward somehow here.
It's to be in their process, you know, and although they won't reimburse us for a new feasibility, they never reimbursed us for the schematic design we did because we didn't get a vote. So it's possible that schematic design would be reimbursable on a new project. They just wouldn't, but you don't get the reimbursement till after you vote to build, because they don't want to invest in something that doesn't turn out.
Through you, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Question?
Good.
So just so I understand, if we were to say yes to the non-binding and the statement of interest, we would be obligated to move forward with the original plan of the 45 million?
Not at all,
That is not true.
no.
Is that in writing anywhere from?
Well, it is in writing. I believe Steve has one of those letters. And,
Okay.
you know, I think it was in the February 1st letter I sent you.
2010.
Yeah. But, and I have those letters here too. We have a choice. If we it's called reactivating our statement of interest. Then we pass the non-binding. And they were very clear, I believe, in the May and the June letter, that we could do anything we wanted, but if we wanted to go with a different plan after our statement of interest, it would be on the burden of the Carver taxpayers and they wouldn't reimburse us. So we can do any plan we want, but by submitting a statement of interest, it's only to tell them the condition of the building from 2007 to 2013, but it doesn't commit us to any plan. But they were very clear in the May and June letters when they kicked us out in June that if we went forward with any other plan for feasibility and schematic, that we'd have to pay for it. They will still reimburse us as long as they are part of the process. But we're not voting on any kind of plan by submitting a statement of interest or a non-binding referendum.
You all set, Helen?
I think so, thank you.
I think what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to one of the other committees, and then we'll ask them some questions, move on to another committee, let them give their input, and then at the end we can have a total discussion on this. What I'd like to do now is open it up to capital outlay. Mr. Ron Clark is the representative.
I'm here with Bob Merritt, one of our members. Jack Angley is ill,
Wishes he could be
and wishes he could be here.
Unlike most of us.
What else should I say?
Did a good job, Mr. Clark.
Lance Kennedy is also a newly appointed member of the Capital Outlay Committee. And Frank McPeck, another new member, is also down with the flu, so that's just running rampant around here. Just a couple of things. It's more of a statement than any sort of a question. For those of you that may not know, Capital Outlay is responsible within the town for evaluating and making recommendations on the infrastructure within the town of Carver. I've been on the committee since 1992, and since the mid-90s, we have been urging school administration to start plans on building a new elementary school, because even back at that time, it was clear that that school had outlived its usefulness, especially the pods out back. There was no question that they had already expired. When you look at the timeline, we started the process in 2006. Coming up on 2012, if everything went perfectly from now, you're looking at probably 2017 by the time you're opening up a new school. So over a decade will have gone by since the evaluators came in and indicated that the building needed to be replaced and was one of the worst within the state of the state. I was a little disheartened this week to read that the housing boom had returned, or the housing market had improved on the South Shore, with the exception of two towns, Carver and Hanson. I don't think that that has anything to do with our school system, but certainly down the road, if you'd have a school system that gains a reputation as not meeting the needs of the children, it's going to have a definitive impact when you go to sell your own home. So just something else to keep in mind as we move forward with this project. The other critical item that we're reaching, and that we brought this up back in 2005, 2006 when we started this project, or started talking about the project, is that if we did not build a new school, then repairs were going to become necessary in the school that we'd been putting off. And actually, the schools have been almost in some sense their own worst enemy, because the teachers and the administration have done a wonderful job putting patches and Band-Aids, and when you walk around the school, it's considering the age of the building, they keep it in phenomenal shape. But at some point, things start breaking down, and there are items that are going to come before town meeting this year that it's going to be, we're going to be faced with the idea of voting on spending money that in a few years, if we move forward with the school, will be duplicated when we move forward with the school. But we're at the point where you have to do it. Otherwise, the school is not going to be habitable. And that was the fear that we had early on when we stopped moving forward with the school project. So literally, it's possible we could spend millions of dollars on rehabbing the school on a temporary basis and then move forward building a new school. And so that as you think about this project moving forward, it's very important to move forward as quickly as possible and make a decision, are we going to build a new school or not? Because we have to know how to spend the dollars on keeping the school a healthy environment for the children to occupy. And finally, the other thing, and it's as part of the capital outlay, we look at everything. We have badly been in need of a new police fire station going back to the same time period. And so as we take a look at a new school building for the elementary school, I would ask you all to keep in mind that we have to do something about the fire station and the police station. They are badly outdated, and there are just no alternatives. We live in a rural town. We don't have any major tax base other than the residential tax base, and that's just the realities. There's no pie-in-the-sky solution for everything. You're either going to pay something more in your taxes in order to have a new school building and a new police and fire station, or you're going to live with the consequences of not moving forward in those projects.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Any questions from the board? Sarah?
Well, I just wanted to thank Mr. Clark, but I also do really want to stress that this vote tonight, this possible vote tonight, does not concern the funding.
Thank you. You have something to say? Go ahead.
I had asked the town administrator if because you had a list, Ron, the capital outlay committee, of all the major repairs that need to be done to the schools. Do you have that with you tonight?
No, we just received that from the school committee. They may have a copy with them.
I had asked Liz if she had an up-to-date list. Not that I don't have
thought
confidence.
it was your list all along. It was Liz's.
It's not that I don't have confidence in Ron, but I made sure I asked Liz.
This was just reviewed at the last school committee meeting.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I might the list that comes out, every year we sit with every department and they give us a list of their requested capital needs. And we review them and we make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen and to town meeting as to what we recommend and what we don't. We have not reviewed this list and made any recommendations on it. And certainly, just because everything is listed on here doesn't mean that the Capital Outlay Committee would recommend them. My point was simply, though, that there are items showing up here that are listed as immediate need that would have been addressed had a school been built at this time.
Thank you. Any other questions by the board? Go ahead, Jack.
So this list, the total amount is $27,682,000. I notice at the top, it says these costs associated with the elementary buildings, these original estimates are from 2011. None of these are MSBA reimbursed. So would those be all costs? If we incurred them separately without building a new school, none of them would be reimbursed at all from the MSBA? Not even as repairs?
That's correct. If you remember, when the MSBA came to the Board of Selectmen's meeting, I believe it was in 2009, and the question was asked, can we get on, they do repair projects. For instance, if we need a new roof here, it used to be a 50-50 split. I don't know what the current split is. But Mary Piketty, who is the second in command of MSBA, made it very clear, and she said, we will do no repairs on these buildings. They need to be renovated and or replaced. So we're not eligible because we're a level 4 building. We're the worst rating, the 23 worst schools in the state for as far as physical condition. We remain somehow miraculously, due to the hard work of the teachers and principals, among the best elementary schools on the South Shore, and definitely the most improved in the MCAS testing last year. And we have over 30 schools come here to visit what we're doing and how we're teaching. So it's not the quality of their education, but it's the conditions of the building. So, but these costs, if we did them one at a time, and some of them beget other costs. For instance, if the boiler, which is built in 1951 when Harry Truman was president, okay? We didn't even have, most of us didn't even have televisions in 1951. We're trying to teach with technology in that building. So if we were to attack these one at a time and say the boiler blew, we can't put in another one because all new ones require a very fancy computer set up for which we don't have the electrical support to do it. So sometimes one triggers in another. So we did some upgrades to our electricity so we could run some technology in that building, but still there's only 2 plugs in every classroom. We can't run an effective computer lab in that building because of that, because we can't charge up even laptops in there. So the individual costs are in the capital outlay plan. It's never been our intention for them to come to fruition because we believe it's not a good, efficient way to invest our money. But we've had to make repairs. We had to, the rooftop units were purchased between 6 and 15 years ago, and 3 are original. They're time bombs. And when we go to repair them, like the one over the gym, we have to have the parts manufactured because they don't make them anymore, which makes something simple really expensive.
Can
Thank
I
you,
ask
Elizabeth.
a quick question?
Jack, does that answer your question?
I just wanted people to know that this total list, also includes the middle school, high school as well.
Right. Well, and it depends on which column you're in.
I just looked at combined total,
I gave my last one away.
27,
Pat, do you have yours?
682.
Can you come up, can you tell them what the elementary told us now?
Well, when we, the two columns on the right used to be one column. What we did for the last couple of years is we did some estimates in 2011, and we said this is what it would cost to take care of some of the major systems and so forth in those two buildings. But since it became apparent that it's going to be a while before a building came along, I had to take some of those out of and make two columns out of it. And it's the same amount of money. We haven't changed any of the estimates yet. You can adjust it for inflation or whatever. But, and then we've got our regular 5-year capital plan also that deals with the other buildings, the middle school, high school, the central office, the transportation, the food service, and so forth. So, yeah, totals up to be over $27 million. $21 million of it is just the two elementary buildings. The rest of it, the balance, $6 million or so, is the rest of the district.
I'm sorry, I just didn't have it in front of me. The other thing I'd like to point out is even if we fixed everything for $21 million, we would still be in an open plan elementary school with no walls and doors. And in the Governor John, we wouldn't have enough space. The classroom, we are educationally deficient because the space doesn't fit the 145 square feet per child that's required. So we are overcrowded by MSBA definitions of the amount of people we put in those two buildings.
But I think just to make one other thought on this, there seems to be a misconception around that we've not maintained the buildings properly and we haven't put money into the buildings. Well, part of the application process to the MSBA is how much have you spent on your regular maintenance and so forth. And there's a standard that you have to meet of what they consider, yes, you've funded your maintenance budget in an adequate fashion. And we have we have significantly eclipsed that number by what we fund with our maintenance staff, with our maintenance supplies and efforts, and with our extraordinary maintenance. And when you look at these buildings too, you got a 1950s building and you got a 1970s building. I mean, compare them to automobiles. How many 1950s and 1970s cars do you see driving on the road today that haven't had a complete restoration? Probably very, very few. And so it's not from a lack of maintaining the buildings. In fact, we've got probably one of the best maintenance crews in the area. They do a fantastic job. They've saved the town significant amounts of money due to the abilities and the talents that they have. So I just wanted to make those couple of points too.
Thank you, Mr. Maha. Any other questions from the board? Capital outlay. Hearing none, we're going to move on to the Building Study Committee. We have Mr. Steve Pratt, Mr. Dan Ryan with us tonight.
Yes, and Mr. Shores is out there in the audience too.
Yep.
I'm Dan Ryan, a member of the Building Study Committee. We didn't have an opportunity to meet, so my comments are basically my own. And I was invited to this meeting just to participate, so just want to make sure you knew for the record that we hadn't met as a committee prior to this. Just a couple of comments. I'm thinking back, I was actually a student at the Governor John, It's probably not too many people can say that, and as I'm sitting here, I was thinking back to some of the memories. I can remember back in the day where in the basement of the town hall, they had woodworking equipment. And we used to walk as students from the Governor John down to the basement of the town hall to make things in the wood shop that they had in the basement of the town hall. So probably dating myself, but I think I can remember asking back then, when are we going to get a new school? And that was many years ago. And so they have solved the problem because they actually put us on buses and sent us to Plymouth for a number of years until Carver built its own high school. So a couple things in thinking back. As I mentioned, as a town building study committee, we haven't met in a while. And interestingly enough, I'm looking at this letter from the Massachusetts School Building Authority here, dated January 3rd, 2013. So we just received this not too long ago. And I just want to read one piece of it that's very important because it kind of summarizes some of the work that we did back in 2011, 2010. So this is relative to the statement of interest, and this is what they're sending us today. Districts should submit one statement of interest per school for each school they believe requires a project. However, and this is important, an SOI should only be filed for a facility where a district has the ability to fund a project in the next 2 years. So we are saying it's not about funding here tonight in submitting the statement of interest. However, it's written right here in black and white from the MSBA, basically saying you have to have the capacity to fund this within 2 years. And I think that was the important part of the work that the Town Building Study Committee did. We looked at all the buildings in town, and like everybody else here, a lot of hard work has been done for a number of years. So I agree that I think most of the citizens of the town recognize the need for building a new built school or renovating the school or doing something to solve the problem. Everybody believes that to be true. I don't think there's too many people that doubt that. However, from our discussions and what we learned between talking to many taxpayers and town government officials is that it was, how are we going to pay for this? And that seemed to be what hurt us or what tripped us up. So opinions ranged all the way from, can we only do a debt exclusion? In other words, can we go to the taxpayers and ask them to fund the entire amount? Or there were people on the other end of the spectrum that said, we can't afford to increase our taxes. We're living on fixed incomes. It's very difficult for us. And the town needs to find a way to come up with money for the principal and interest within the existing budgets. So we heard opinions all the way from both sides of the fence. But I think in the end what it came down to is that we were asked as a committee to try to find a way where everybody could work together. Did we look hard enough? That's what the questions we kept getting asked were. Did you look hard enough in the budgets? Did you come up with enough options that we can look at so you can minimize the impact to the taxpayers? And I think in the end, people knew they had to increase the tax bills by some amount, but they wanted to make sure the town did as much as they could to minimize that to the taxpayers. And I think it's fine to submit a statement of interest, but we're going to be back to that same problem pretty quickly. And so there's a lot of work to be done. It's not going to be easy. And I think that's what it's going to come back down to again. We're just going to all have to figure out how do we work together to look at all the possible options. And things have changed now, by the way. We probably don't have as many options available to us that we might have had back then. And I can imagine that the cost is going to be a little bit more and to do the project perhaps. And that's why we have to probably go back to looking at what's feasible for everybody. That's going to, and maybe I summarized it here, in the end, you have to come up with a viable funding mechanism that's going to be acceptable at least to the number of voters that you're going to need to approve this and pass this. And that's what it came down to. Thank you.
Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Steve Pratt, 16 Weston Street. To me, it's a matter of coming back to the voters again. Mr. LaFawn knows how much I love history of Carver. And for those that have been here for over the 30 years, knows this is where we were 30 years ago when we were deciding what to do with this building. It was April of 1984 that we actually took the vote, the debt exclusion, to build this building. And it didn't open until February of '88. So it's a long process, and the town's been through this before. We know what it's about. And I applaud the parents for stepping forward, because that's what we said was needed back then 2 years ago. We needed the parents to step forward. But tonight's about two things. The two things are, should there be a non-binding referendum question on the ballot, and should the town, the school committee, and the Board of Selectmen vote on submitting a new statement of interest? To me, the non-binding question has problems, because first of all, there is no requirement in what I've read of the MSBA to submit a new statement of interest that we have to wait for an invitation back in, and that we should take a non-binding vote in advance. But what's concerning me most about this non-binding question that's been presented to the Board of Selectmen is the wording of it, because it is the exact same wording from the April 2011 ballot question, which was about project scope and budget, to the old statement of interest. So what concerned me is that even though we want to open up and look at other options with the statement of interest, we're asking the voters again to vote on the project and scope of the old statement of interest. So it would seem that the non-binding question really is irrelevant to the new statement of interest. And what I would rather see, if you really want to have a non-binding referendum, is ask something that's of general nature, such as, will the town support the repair or replacement of the elementary schools? And not one that says the existing school at the existing location estimated to be $45 million. Because what concerns me is that it will confuse the voters. They will think that they're voting on what they previously voted on, even though it's a non-binding. So I can support submitting a statement of interest. I wish we had done a new statement of interest in July of 2011 and forced, or when the opening was, and forced the issue again. But we needed the parents to step forward. The votes weren't there, the parents weren't there. That's what the school committee kept, I want to say, screaming for. But of all the forums we had and all of the discussions we had, we had 30, 40, 50 people come to them. We needed to have more people involved, and I appreciate the parents doing that. It's extremely important. But I don't want to go back to the voters again to ask a question which isn't relevant to the new statement of interest, because it's just going to cause divisiveness. It's going to cause people to take sides because they think that's what we're going to do. And it's not the Carver rule. I apologize, but I disagree. The Carver rule applied to the old statement of interest because we did have two bad votes.
Steve, Mr. Chairman, can I talk to Steve? We have had extensive conversations in February 2nd or 3rd of 2011. I believe both you and Dan were there, and we were on the phone with them, and we asked them, what if it fails? And their answer was that you have to resubmit your statement of interest, and you have to have a non-binding referendum. That was their answer, and it continues to be their answer. I wish it weren't the truth.
Well,
but just let me finish. The MSBA makes the rules, and we really have to follow them. The non-binding referendum only says that we're submitting our statement of interest again. The reason the wording should be the same is because that's what they approved. You could take out the amount if you wanted. It doesn't have to be an amount on there, I'm sure. Last time, people wanted the amount in there, and so we got special permission to put the amount in there. But it is very clear to me, and through conversations with MSBA, through the town's attorney, Lauren Goldberg, we're not getting back in without a non-binding referendum. And it would, I'll do the statement of interest to hold our place, but unless we have that also in quick succession, we're just lucky this time April falls right when it's due, and they won't make their decisions until the July board meeting of the MSBA. But we do have to do it. I wish we didn't, but we have to.
Mr. Chairman, sorry. Tommy.
Go ahead.
I understand what you're saying, Liz. I really do. The problem is, there's no requirement in the MSBA letter on their website for any other city or town to
It's
submit a
true.
new statement of interest.
That's true, but for
And
us-
it says that even if you submitted an old statement of interest, you still got to do everything over again anyways. Why is Carver being penalized from all the other 350 cities and towns to requiring a non-binding referendum relative to a project and a statement of interest that is no longer valid? The non-binding referendum was an option they told us we had to take. We had to have a positive vote, all right? That was because we had 2 failed votes on the debt exclusion, and in February 1st, they said, you're out. And you spent a lot of time writing letters, making phone calls back and forth to the MSBA, and said, give us another chance. Do whatever we can. We're having conversations. We're going to town meetings. We're going to pay for the schematic design under the levy. We're doing all these things. Let us keep trying. And we did. We kept trying. And we came to have the non-binding. But their letter of May 24th of 2011, which was received the night of the Board of Selectmen meeting, said, if you don't have a debt exclusion vote before July 1st, you will need to submit a new statement of interest, and you will have to wait for an invitation to get back in. It does not say, and by the way, you got to have another non-binding vote. It doesn't say that.
It
And
does.
It says in the last paragraph of that letter?
On
All right, folks.
February
f-
1st.
Folks, this is not a debate.
I know,
okay.
but I do want to,
This is not a debate.
Mr. Chair, could we hear the Ms. Sorrell response,
so on
please?
February 1st.
Hold on a second, please.
Okay, I'm sorry.
This is not a debate. You were invited here to give us your insight.
Yes.
Okay? Do you have anything else to add to the conversation?
I support a new statement of interest. Please let us go forward and figure out the finance of it. But please, 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 let's not go back to 2010 and 2011 when we divided the town. We don't need to do that. We're all neighbors. We've lived here for all these years. We want to work together. We're glad the parents have stepped forward. Before we decide to do something, let's think it through and understand the consequences of it. That's all we ask. That's all we ever asked as residents and town building study committee members. We wanted everybody to work together to come to the middle to a solution. And I hope we can do that. I really do. Thank you. I apologize, Mr. Chairman.
That's okay. Questions from the board?
I have a question.
Start it off then.
Mr. Pratt, you say we don't need to do this, and our school superintendent says we need to. So I'm sitting here saying, okay, if I want to make a motion to do a non-binding question as was on our agenda to discuss, how am I supposed to know what to do? Whose word do I take?
Are you asking me, Dick, too? The letter we have on February 1st, which prompted the conversation we had with
Liz,
them.
I'm sorry, could you use the microphone?
Yeah, the letter we had from MSBA on February 1st of 2010, which prompted the conversation we had with Mr. Pratt and Mr. Ryan, on it said, in order to reactivate the statement of interest for the Governor John Carver Elementary School and re-enter the capital pipeline, the town must demonstrate local support for funding a school project by passing a ballot question for a project with a defined scope and budget. I know that you're interpreting that to be only the single plan we had, but when we talked to them on the 2nd, on the phone, I said, does this mean a non-binding? They said, yes. We all talked to them. And then furthermore, when it failed again, I talked to them, when the non-binding failed, I said, what do we do to get back? Well, the next time you submit a statement of interest, you have to do the non-binding with it. That's just what they've told me. And I've talked to their legal department. I've talked to Mary Paquetti, who's, like I said, the second person in command, and Catherine Craven at the time. Now Catherine Craven doesn't work for them anymore. I would be thrilled if we don't have to do this. But if we spend a lot of time putting this statement of interest together and we don't get considered because we don't have the non-binding referendum and we can't do it again until next April, I just fear that we've lost another year. That's just, I mean, I'm not trying to, just say, I'm not trying. Right, yeah, Kevin.
Hi, I was just saying to Liz, I think that we should go for the vote to bring a vote in the spring along with the SOI, and then get clear, concise, updated, written explanation on how to move forward from the SBA as far as our options are concerned, on how that letter should be written, and I think that will meet everybody's requirements. And if Steve is correct, and we can leave out certain parts, then God bless, we'll go in that direction. And if not, anything that is required, I just think clarity is absolutely a necessity, because in the past it got very muddy with everything that had happened and all of the different attempts that were made and coming at it from different angles. And even the MSBA may be somewhat confused as far as what it is that we're trying to get across. So I think starting fresh with a letter from the MSBA, letting them know we're starting anew. All that has been done before is gone. We're starting fresh. It's a whole new process. What do we need to do from the beginning? This is our understanding. Is it accurate? And then we'll have written response for everybody to follow that guideline. My suggestion.
Thank you. Dick, does that answer your question?
Mr. Chairman, may I try to?
Let him finish.
Let Steve go ahead. I want to hear that.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We're not going to resolve this tonight. We're not going to resolve this tonight. Everybody needs to read all the letters from the MSBA. I'm not going to read these to you. But Liz, the previous paragraph to what you wrote says exactly why the non-binding was relative to the old statement of interest. The same letter, February 1st, 2010. The town of Carver voters have twice rejected the debt exclusion that the town needed to move the proposed project at the school to the next phase in the MSBA capital pipeline. Due to the lack of local support for this proposed project, as evidenced by the results of the ballot questions on October 17, 2009 and January 19, 2010, the MSBA is removing the Governor John Carver Elementary School from its capital pipeline. The reference to in order to reactivate the statement of interest was relative to the 2008 statement of interest. There is no subsequent letters from the MSBA requiring us to do a non-binding in order to submit a new statement of interest. We are not going to reactivate the old statement of interest. We are submitting a brand new statement of interest that's been updated through all of the information you have. I don't want to complicate this. The Board of Selectmen need to know we need to know why Carver is being told it has to do a non-binding when no other city or town in the state is doing it. It just does not make sense to me, and it's not fair to the board, and it's not fair to the residents if what decisions made tonight to do something that we may not need to do. That's my only point to this whole thing, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Pratt, we will stipulate that there's certain language in that letter. We also stipulate that the superintendent talked to them on the telephone and may have been given some different information. So
2010.
There's some confusion
I have
here.
talked to them as January 7th, and that's what I was told. And no matter what we call it, they call it, we are reactivating our statement of interest, renewing it, reactivate. That's what, when they get the same project for the second time, and project being the same building, not the same plan, but the same building submitted for the second time, then they call it a reactivation. And the person who told me this told me we had to do the non-binding. If they can be lobbied to change their mind, I'm happy to do it. I'm only telling you what they told me. I wouldn't want to make up things to make this hard, because it just makes
And nobody is
everybody's life
challenging
hard.
your word, but maybe we can get them to put that in writing so it will eliminate the confusion, and we'll have some clarity, like Mr. Walsh said. Because it's difficult to ask people to vote on something and approve something when,
I would hope, though, we could, if the board is willing, to vote on submitting a statement of interest, because it just takes so long to do. I need the time to do it.
Ms. Maroney?
Yeah, I have a few things in terms of the overall town and why the vote was turned down a few times. And
Helen, you're going to have to speak into that mic. And are you addressing your questions to the building committee or the school committee?
I'm just making a comment of Liz asking for the vote tonight.
All right, can you hold this up?
Sure.
And we're going to go to the FinCom and let them
I think
participate.
that's a great idea.
Give their
Sorry,
recommendations.
absolutely, just so I can
At
answer.
the end, we'll make the motions on these items if necessary. At that time, we'll open it up for the board discussion.
Been very quiet over there.
Thank you for your patience. Last and probably one of the most important viewpoints. And Mr. John Carter, the chairman.
Thank you. I first want to follow proper protocol, and we didn't get a chance to open our meeting for the January 22nd meeting of the Finance Committee, just to make sure that that's on the record. We've been involved somewhat in some of the various aspects of all these committees with regards to funding these projects. The Finance Committee believes that these projects can get emotional, people get passionate over it, but when you go and vote at the ballot box, they want to vote for a plan. Due to the work of the Town Building and Study Committee, we had a plan to go and fund our Building Stabilization Fund. We've embraced that aggressively, trying to overfund that for a few years and failed at town meeting. Capital Outlay is absolutely correct with regards to this is the project right now, but there are many, many, many infrastructure projects we need to look at. And we have to come up with a long-term plan to do this. 3 years, 5 year, 10 year, 15 year. Right now, we look at a 1 year bubble. What are we going to spend next year? Oh, something went wrong with the building. How are we going to pay for it? We're always reactionary. We have to have a plan in place that people may not like. They can debate it, but eventually they'll have to vote on a plan that we can all agree with. My question, or one of the questions we had with regards to the way this question is worded, is that when people go to the ballot box, if it's worded exactly this same way, people that haven't gone to these meetings, that aren't in tune with what's going on, go right back to the failed vote, and that's all they're going to see. So one of our concerns, and maybe it's been addressed, maybe it hasn't, is if this question can be worded in such a way that ties in the MSBA requirements, saying something to the effect as if, see if the town will vote for a school meeting the recommendations of the MSBA as it relates to number of students and square footage, leaving open the possibility that it's either a rebuild, a renovate, a new school in another location, but something that people can vote on saying, okay, they're talking again, they're going to give us options. And if it takes a year down the road to do that, we need to be able to address the concerns of the citizen that says, I can't afford it, pay for it with my existing tax money. You have to do an impact scenario for everyone and say, if we did that, this is the effect on town services. And go to the other extreme that says it's going to be paid with a debt exclusion. Okay, what are my taxes going to be like 3, 5, 10 years from now? They have to vote for a plan, and that's what we'd like to work with every committee on and be a part of. Thank you.
Any other input from any of the other members?
Yeah, Scott Martin. Is it possible, I'd like to see you guys table this thing for at least 2 weeks until we can get a clarification on the non-binding question. That's my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if I'm the best person to speak to this, perhaps maybe even our town clerk is, but it's my understanding that from a time frame standpoint, because these decisions have to be made, I believe, 90 days before the ballot. I'm seeing Jean nod her head. In fact, I'm seeing Jean nod her head with a lot of other people back down there. what they've instructed us is that, and I believe the school committee and the proponents, is that if the Board of Selectmen doesn't vote tonight or tables it tonight, it puts it outside your discretion because of proximity to the ballot date, the vote of the. It also then would allow the proponents to go and get their petition by initiative petition on the ballot regardless. I guess the concern I would have is that if there is an intention to cooperate on getting the right question, I would presume that between, Mr. Cotter, the school superintendent, and one of the proponents, there could be a question, if authorized by the selectmen, that perhaps everybody felt really good about. So that's just a suggestion, just to make sure that everybody gets what they want. Because the alternative is really an initiative petition, which will leave you with the question that's been petitioned. Not that that's a bad thing, but I think if you're looking for clarity, that it might be helpful to have a combined effort to put together a question.
I think last time we didn't put the final question together until all the parties had reviewed it, and the attorneys, and it was just
Right.
before Jeannie had to send it off to be printed.
Right, and the issue too is, I believe my recollection, which is not always the best, is that MSBA and Town Council approved the language of that question. So using that as a basis for the new question makes a lot of sense. But if people feel there's a better way to approach that, I think you really would have to take that vote tonight, though. It's not something you could put off, because you're going to have probably a question by petition, initiative petition, otherwise.
So let me just try and clarify this for the members of the audience. If this was tabled tonight, or if it was voted down, there would still be an option for those inclined, if they want to submit a petition article for town meeting.
Correct, but they have to come through the Board of Selectmen and give the board the opportunity to put it on prior to the initiative petition process. That's part of the state law that the town clerk has outlined.
Now I'm confused. I thought a petition article automatically went on the ballot.
I see the town clerk getting up, much to my relief.
Mrs. McGillicuddy, would you care to join us, please?
Okay, Jean McGillicuddy, Town Clerk. There's a 90-day window here, and that is over on March 25th, I believe. So you really have to take this vote tonight because of that time frame. Because if they are going to get these signatures out there anyway, I think one way or another. But those signatures have to come to us by March 18th at 5 o'clock, because we need 7 days to certify those signatures. The ballot is on its way out, I believe, around the 25th of March to get printed. So everything has to be, am I explaining that correctly?
Could speak to the legal process that might be helpful in terms of the petition process itself that you explained to me last week.
I think that what I was talking to you about was Mass General Law, Chapter 53, on a non-binding question, that there's 90-day window, okay, that you have to vote before the 90 days. So if you don't vote tonight and you table it, it's going to go past the 90 days. Am I explaining that correctly?
But that still wouldn't preclude a citizen's petition.
Well,
the deadline for that would be when? March
18th.
March 18th. Okay, so there's still an alternative route.
If I may, Mr. Chair, and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, Jean, but my understanding is that this one-page 10-citizen petition that we have in front of us tonight is a legal requirement to bring to this board, and then whether or not we agree to put it on the ballot, the citizens having brought us this 10-petition page can then move forward with their own petition.
Exactly.
Regardless of how this board votes?
Correctly.
Okay.
That's correct.
I think that's
Thank
what I
you.
was saying, but
Okay.
I mean, Alan?
And Mike, I'm trying to put all the pieces together. If we, in the interim, can find out if we actually need a non-binding or not, because the non-binding, I believe, Jean, is the 90-day rule. It's the non-binding, not the statement of interest.
That's the non-binding.
Right. So there just seems to be a lot of unanswered questions that we
Mr.
could
Chair?
get answered before we make a vote.
Helen, are you all set?
Yeah.
Jack?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Jeannie, but does the Board of Selectmen also have the option of submitting a non-binding question by vote of their body?
Well, the Board of Selectmen has the right to put anything on the ballot.
So what
Totally
timeframe-
without.
What was the latest we could do that by, to have it on the ballot?
The 18th. Well, without signatures, the 25th of March.
Yeah.
That's the
So
latest.
we could still, among the whole body here, come up with some sort of verbiage or some sort of wording to put that on the ballot.
Well,
Is that correct, Jane?
yes, the Board of Selectmen, if they want to put it on the ballot, that's the end of it. You can put it on the ballot. If you decide, if you disapprove and not put it, vote to put it on the ballot, then they have a right to go with their petitions.
Okay,
And those I have to have by March 18th,
thank you.
okay?
Okay, now I want to open up questions from the board to the Finance Committee. Would anybody like to kick that off? Helen?
Could you, I know budgets have just started, but can you kind of give us a feel for what's coming down the pike in terms of the next few years, in terms of the residents, and what may also cause taxes to possibly have to increase, so we can look at the big picture and not just the school at this point? The reason I'm asking this is because I know statewide, we're predicting that our taxes are going to be increased, and so we need to look at the cumulative of everything.
Yeah, give it a shot. The current process right now, the current budget process we're in, is we've established estimated revenues for next year, and right now, departments are looking at their budgets at what do they need to do to have a level service, services budget for the town for 2014. We don't have any long-range projections because that really hasn't been the method historically when we had tackled the budget. But when you look at our existing tax structure, every year the levy increases by 2.5%. That's the maximum you can increase under Prop 2.5. That roughly equates to about $80 to $100 a taxpayer. So once you, I don't want to throw out numbers with regards to scaring people, but once you lay on a debt exclusion for whether it be a school, whether it be the police or fire, then that's in addition to Proposition 2.5. So your taxes could go up substantially over the next 5 to 10 years based on whatever the town approves at the ballot box for these new projects. The other way to offset that is looking at savings. Where can we save money down the road? But again, that's nothing the Finance Committee can do. We have to look at our finances as a group and find out, what level of service are we going to provide going forward, and how can we accomplish that? With regards to what the state is doing, obviously, there's been a lot in the news with regards to Governor Patrick's spending recommendations with our income tax rate going up. I don't know if that will happen. That didn't seem to get as much resistance at the government level as you might think. So we could be looking at an increase as well of our state income tax down the road.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I just want to point out, not to be annoying, but I know the board has been the object of some inquiries from the Attorney General on discussing items that actually aren't on our agenda, and I didn't want to interrupt Mr. Cotter, but I get anxious because we're not really supposed to be talking about budgets or financing of this project. It's really not on the agenda, but that's your call. It just makes me nervous.
It has to do with the overall topic of paying for the school.
But
So it was a
paying
general
for the school is
question.
not on the agenda.
It was general question relative to the topic tonight.
Okay. Any other questions for the FinCom? Dick?
If and I don't know where this question goes, I guess it has to go back to the school committee. If a motion were made to place the non-binding question on the ballot, or a motion to support the filing of a new statement of interest with the MSBA, or both, would there be time to work the wording around so that it it can be changed. In other words, if we voted it tonight, to make sure we don't get tripped up with a 90-day confining area, I'm concerned with what Kevin said, clarity. I don't want to put a non-binding question on the ballot that's the exact same as before that's been rejected. So if we were to vote a motion to allow us to reconstruct the wording so that it would be more clear and more maybe acceptable, if that's, because I don't know if we can just go directly to the new statement of interest.
I think the order of the vote, in my opinion, but you can all challenge that because is that unless you first vote whether or not to submit the statement of interest, you don't need the second one if the first question fails. So it seems the order of operations would be the statement of interest and then the non-binding question, with the provision, of course, between the statement of interest, because then I will be engaging the MSBA. I don't have a person to talk to right now. We're not assigned to anyone until I get into this statement of interest process. If we do that, then I have someone who will send me to their legal department, who I will get pushed all around MSBA, but finally I'll tell them I really absolutely need a letter to state exactly what their expectation is of a non-binding question, if it still exists, which I've been told it does, but I can get them maybe to put this in writing for us, and not maybe, I'll just make them put it in writing. But, and then the second thing would be to submit to agree to put a non-binding referendum on there. I don't think we have to decide on the wording tonight. Like I said, the last time it went back and forth between MSBA and the town councils many, many times. I have these many emails that shows that Steve worked on it, Dan worked on it, the town councils worked on it. So it's a work in progress, but the 90-day rule requires us to make some decision, but I think the first decision is statement of interest.
Statement of interest.
Dick, you all set?
I'm set on the question. I haven't decided to make the motion or how.
Mr. Chairman, may I? One thing I'd like to add, in addition to the clarity that I had mentioned earlier, I also think it's imperative that this community has unity. And I think that if we do waive the 90-day process, it's left up to the Board of Selectmen as your project. Whereas if we were to take the vote tonight and then work collaboratively on a process where that clarity is present and the unity, I think it shows a better support for the project and doesn't isolate it. So I think it's imperative that that vote is taken tonight.
Thank you. All right. We've had input from a number of committees, number of boards. We've had significant discourse about this. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Why not? My motion would be to support the filing of a new statement of interest with the MSBA and to place a non-binding question on the ballot for an annual election in April regarding the Carver Elementary School.
I'd like to second that motion.
And we have a second on that from Ms. Hewens. It is now open for discussion.
I believe that the school committee has to motion.
Liz, can you use the microphone?
I believe since it's a joint, oh no, we're talking about statement of interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Statement of interest and non-binding. Mr. Ward made a recommendation.
okay, so they have to vote on the statement of interest. Well, they have to have a motion and a second from the school committee, and then they participate in the vote.
So
Because
should
it's a
it be
joint.
two separate motions?
It
One on
should
this-
be,
Okay.
yeah.
Mr. Ward, did you want to?
So there should be a motion, number one, to file a new statement of interest to the MSBA. That should be the motion.
I second that
Okay.
motion.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Now it's open for discussion.
And through you, Mr. Chair, we need a motion from the school committee.
And I would like to make a motion on behalf of the school committee to submit our statement of interest to the MSBA as well.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Board of Selectmen, further discussion.
I personally would like to see it tabled until we get.
Helen, you got to speak up into the mic.
I would like to see it tabled until we get a letter about the non-binding referendum, especially, if, there is an option out there other than that, but I don't feel comfortable right now approving this, going for, I think we're premature. I think it's budget times, and we're going to get a lot more from that end, and I'd like to table it because then we'd still be able to move forward based on what I've heard tonight.
Mr. Franny.
In this letter I received from the MSBA that you received January 3rd, it says, properly completed statement of interest and all required documentation, including the required votes of municipal governing body and school committee, a signed copy of the statement of interest, and all applicable closed school data must be postmarked no later than April 10th, 2013. I'd like to ask everyone, has anyone had an opportunity to read the prior statement of interest? Anyone on the school committee or the Board of Selectmen?
I can tell you that I cannot say I have read each and every of the 300 pages. Time's a little bit tight for me on that regard, but I am very well versed on what is in there, having been on not only the school committee, but the school building committee. So I am very well aware of what is in the former statement of interest.
And I, being on the school building project committee as well, am very familiar with what's in it, although I couldn't repeat it or recite it verbatim. But yes, I'm very familiar with the content of the initial statement of interest.
Don't you think it's important before you sign a contract that you read it first?
Jack, I would tend to agree with you through you, Mr. Chair. But at this point, we're discussing a new statement of interest. And as that comes about, then...
Well, I mean, the new statement of interest, you're going to take the old one, it's going to repopulate, and then you're going to just update
A
it.
good piece of it, Jack.
I'm not trying to delay anything, but I have a tendency to read everything before I'm going to put my signature or my vote on it.
And Jack, we both have to make our decisions on this one. Absolutely.
Could I
Sarah,
make...
Sarah, you have anything?
I was just concurring with Lance. We haven't seen the new statement of interest.
Helen?
Sorry about that interruption, Sarah. I'm just reading here through what Steve has just pointed out to me that in some of the questions regarding statement of interest, it says, is there a required text for the votes authorizing on a statement of interest in it? And Liz, you may be able to answer this here, but it says there's a special form of a vote that you have to take. Thank you.
That's to authorize it. To vote to submit it, but before you sign it, we'll have to come back to you and ask you to authorize what we have submitted. But you have to authorize me as both to write it, to complete it, bring it to you. Otherwise, I don't have permission to put it together from both joint committees. So I'm putting it together. Prior to April 10th, I would bring or provide electronic copies because I'm not sure I want to copy all this. I will if you want me to. But, and then before you submit it and authorize it, but now you have to authorize me just to write it because otherwise I'm just doing something the town doesn't want me to do. And then the text of the authorized vote would come after I have completed it.
So
it's all online though, so I'm going to have to figure out how to now I submitted this a paper document last time, but now I've got to do it all online so I can figure out how you can read it.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Not to drag this out, but so this vote tonight is simply to authorize you to prepare a new statement of interest, which then we would all read thoroughly and come back and vote on again. Okay.
Yes, Jack.
I don't mean to belabor the point, but in this December 3rd letter, it doesn't say anything about.
Speak into
that
the
we
mic,
have-
Jack.
That we have to authorize you first. All it says is that you need all required signatures before you submit it.
But for the life of me, why would I write it if you don't authorize me just to begin? Because I've already spent probably 400 to 500 hours on the first one, and I'll be doing this again. So I want to do what you want me to do. But if you don't want me to do this year, this time, then tell me, because it's a lot of work.
I want you to do it, but I want to have an opportunity to at least read the prior one, which probably is like 98% of what the new one's going to be, because it's going to populate it.
We will have that opportunity.
You'll have the opportunity.
Dick, do you have anything that you want to add to this August discussion?
No, I think the first part that I just made the motion for is what I feel that we have these young folks that are very concerned with the kids and the school, and I think we've got to go forward to some extent here to start this process. And I'm worried about us pushing it back and then having some problem with it. I think if we make this motion now and we proceed and we get another statement back from the superintendent that we need to ratify or whatever, we're moving.
May I?
Go ahead, Alan.
We are all concerned about the kids and getting this new school, and that's why a few months back we started to work with the school. That's why we spent over $12,000 on a survey, and that's why we've done a few focus groups. So I just want to make it clear we all are concerned, but I'm also concerned about you as a person who has to survive in this town. And to survive in this town, we have to look at it from a financial perspective, have all the facts in place, and be thinking from the budget standpoint, which we were starting to do. So I am just going to urge everyone not to feel like, because of an emotional tragedy, that we can't keep on the path that we have. And if we can get that answer on the non-binding referendum about whether we even need it, that's another step in the right direction.
Okay, Callie, you've been quiet over there.
I just want to respectfully disagree. I personally have been on the path for having a collaboration with everyone, and this is the first time, including parents being here, that we actually have all showed up and are in the same room. I think that it's an opportunity for us to start and move forward together, and I do hear separate clapping in the room, and that concerns me. I'd like for all of us right now to clap for all of us being in the same room together at once.
We have been before. This is what...
I don't recall ever being in the same... Excuse me,
May
Chair.
I just one more time?
Let her finish. No, let her finish.
This is something that I am, why I'm on school committee. I'm very passionate about this. I'm very passionate about this town. I'm very passionate about us all coming to an agreement on something that is so important. And it is concerning to me that we are finally in this room together and we are disagreeing. I could cry. Let's please put our egos aside. Let's work together on this project and not prolong it. We're not asking to make any real decisions. We just want to move forward with a statement of interest and then work together. This could be the starting gate for something that is really amazing in this town. We could pull together.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I please say one word and follow up?
Very quickly, this is the board's discussion time, so.
Absolutely. We didn't have our discussion yet, so I can table this if you'd like, but I feel this tremendous sense of distrust. And I would like to say, speaking independently as a school committee member, there have been things raised about the way business is conducted, people with concerns that I, to the extent of my capacity as a school committee member, have researched, have asked Ms. Sorrell to prove, document, demonstrate, reinforce, reiterate, and whatnot. As a school committee member representing the children, the voters, my own family, I implore you all to trust us. Please consider moving this forward so we don't have further division, so that we are putting good money on top of bad for buildings we can't afford to keep fixing. And I promise you, if you need, I will ask the MSBA or ask Liz to ask the MSBA to come here again and tell us directly at a meeting. Let's just get it on the ballot. We will be as transparent. I personally am working to earn your trust. Please, let's move forward united. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim, did you want to say something?
Jack, just to touch base, Liz had walked me through a lot of the information because I wasn't on the committee when they went through the first process. And so I got to see a lot of it the other night, particularly part of the non-binding, the statement of interest. And it's merely just presenting to the state what our need is. There's absolutely no attachment to it at all. We definitely need to reword the non-binding referendum. I think that's essential, and I think everybody's here to do that, and that's why we came here, and we should be working to move forward. But as far as the statement of interest, there is no attachment to it. It's just giving the state the information that this is what we need right now, this is what's wrong right now, and we're not bound to anything beyond that. It's just letting them know that we want to get the ball rolling, and I think that we need to do something to show the people that we're at least willing to get the ball rolling, because where that goes is up to us.
Thank you. Colin, did you have?
I just want to make one final comment that we have been working together, and I think over the past 2 months you will all agree that we've gone to those meetings together and saying, wow, we're finally there. And we were just at the starting point where Lance was going to work on figuring out who should be on that committee, and we specifically spoke about the Finance Committee, the Capital Outlay, and the Building Study Committee. I mean, it's unfortunate that we ended up here now because of the Newtown tragedy, but we were getting there, and we still will. So we are working together.
Thank you, Helen. I'm just going to add my 2 cents into this. You know, I've got the same position that I've had from day one.
Mr. Chair, may I
Yep.
say something for a moment?
Go ahead,
That
Jean.
90-day that we were talking about, I'm trying to figure it all out without my book here, but that gives the Board of Selectmen until January 28th to approve or disapprove the petition that was just, you have now with the 10 signatures. So I just want you to know that, and then they'd have to come through with that, with all of their other signatures. But you have only till January 28th.
Okay, thank you, Jean. Again, as I started to say, my position from day one has been the same. To me, the elephant in the room is the financing mechanism. This thing has failed 3 times because we did not have a financial plan in place. We could not explain to the taxpayers what the burden was going to be on them. So I think that what we're doing is we're putting the cart back before the horse again. And for a 4th time, we're just going to drag everybody in town through this, and we're going to have broken relationships, and we're going to have disunity and a lot of hate and discontent. And that's my feeling. I think we need to sit down in a room, and if we have to put boxing gloves on, hammer out a financing plan, and then present it to the people and move forward. That's just my opinion. That's it. All right, at this point in time.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
At this point in time, we have a motion and we have a second to move forward with the statement of interest. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those not in favor. 3-2, the motion fails. We have
I'm
a
sorry.
financing
Through
plan
Mr.
in
Chair,
place, we can move forward.
we have a vote on the table.
You can go ahead.
I actually just wanted to clarify, Ms. Maroney's hand was, it wasn't clear to me. Were you in favor or opposed, please? Thank you.
Yes. At this time, I'd like to open up for discussion. School committee, is there any discussion on this beyond what has already been addressed? Kevin, I know you didn't have a chance.
I actually agree with Mike. I think that the financing mechanism has always been the problem, and I've been voicing that very strongly, publicly and privately, to the dismay of many and to the applause of others. However, we still need to bring forward the statement of interest so that we can have that meeting with or without boxing gloves that you mentioned. This is step one, and you're right, the financing will be a big issue. But without step one, we'll never even get to step two. So I think that it's imperative that we move forward with the statement of interest first, and I look forward to that meeting so that we can talk about the big pink elephant in the room, and we can come up with a financial project that will be accepted by the entire community, and I look forward to that day.
But see, there doesn't appear to be an incentive, Kevin. Once we go through these other two steps, there doesn't appear to be an incentive to force people to the table to negotiate in good faith.
Then you and
come
I
up
will
with a
drag them
financial
here.
plan.
You and I will. I'll get together and we'll do what we have to do to bring those people here.
Well, in the interim, right now, the vote has failed by the Board of Selectmen. So, that's it.
We tend to agree, Michael, but at this point, as Kevin said, I just want to echo his sentiments. Tonight really wasn't about the financial. We do understand that is the elephant in the room,
Yep.
but this was about timing and about process. And
But you can't have one without the other, Lance.
we agree,
You know,
but
you can semantics all you want.
Sure.
That's a topic for down the road,
Sure.
but it's not a topic for down the road.
well, as Helen shared, we were heading down that road, and unfortunately, it seems tonight.
Then maybe we ought to continue heading down that road until we can
We do.
get our act together.
I agree.
I'll tell you what, if we can hammer out a financial plan, I'll be the first one to jump up and say, let's go for it. Okay? To this point, I haven't heard one recommendation about doing anything financial.
Sure. And that wasn't what tonight was about.
Exactly.
And the problem is, at this point, tonight didn't seem like we unified. It seemed that we were kind of heading back in the old track, and hopefully we can rectify that.
Okay,
Mr.
that
Chair,
matter
can
is,
I say something,
Mr. Chair,
please?
may I ask a question?
the matter is
Point
over
of-
for discussion.
Point of order, doesn't
gonna
the
move
school
on.
committee need to vote on this as well? Isn't
Yes.
this a
School
joint
committee vote.
vote?
Discussion, any other discussion on this before we bring it to a vote? Real quick.
I'm confused on how we as a school committee could, I'm in full support of this. I will vote to move forward with the statement of interest. However, if we don't have the Board of Selectmen's support, I need some clarification. What does that mean to us as a school committee? Can we still go ahead and submit that statement of interest without their support?
No, all we're asking tonight, would the combined boards direct me, your superintendent, to begin the process of putting together the statement of interest, because it is a very cumbersome thing.
Right.
I would say, whatever your last meeting in March is, I would have it done by then, so you could review it, and then either vote to submit it or not submit it. But tonight, in order to get it done so you can review it, I have to start pretty soon.
So if the school committee approves you to doing it, you would still go forward, and then we would come back to them with a statement of interest
For
and
this
ask-
particular thing, because we're not submitting it to MSBA, you're directing me to write it.
So we're not.
It's
gonna-
just a majority of the combined boards. It's not a majority of each individual board.
Okay. And then if
That's
we,
my question.
if
Okay,
we approve.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the vote has been taken by the Board of Selectmen.
Sure.
Correct.
If
This
the
is school committee
wants to
discussion.
take their own vote, then take a vote and let's wrap it up, okay? We have other business to conduct.
I have just, we are in school committee session, right? And I'm trying to understand the process so I can make an educated vote, Mr. O'Donnell. Could I have one more second, please?
You can have one more second.
Thank you. I'm not voting on any money right now. Submitting the statement of interest will help us get down the road. We're directing you to write it. There's no money on the table. And then we vote again to submit it.
Yes, and I
Okay.
think we've established that. So
Fine.
at this point,
Thank you.
I will ask, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let it be known that it was unanimous.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for your input tonight. We appreciate it very much.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to place the non-binding referendum question on the ballot for the annual election in May concerning the school issue.
You have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
In
In
April.
April, I beg your pardon, yes,
Okay.
of
We
2013.
have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that?
Again, I was hoping to table that until we got clarification.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Opposed. 3 opposed. 3 to 2, the motion fails.
So I just have a question that I had gone forth with this petition to the town and currently have just under 1,000 signatures from the town. So therefore, by having that petition, we should be able to get this question back on the ballot because the town has spoken.
You need to work with Jean McGillicuddy on that.
Yes.
Okay.
So I need to, my
Submit-
question for you is, do I then hand all of this into her and let her
Yes.
know? Okay, so
Yeah.
that's what I need
Yeah,
to do.
she has to verify they're all voters and registered voters.
So just so I understand that I will take all of this and give this to her, and now are we able to have the superintendent, what have with the statement of interest? I just want to make sure that we're doing it. So we're all set with that. Okay. So,
Thank you.
Could I have a motion to adjourn school committee?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the school committee meeting at 8:57 PM.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Mr. Carter, I don't know if you have to do the same for the FinCom?
We already did.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And there's no quorum on the other committees or boards, so.
Thank you, folks, for dealing with a difficult question. Everybody.
Doesn't get any easier. All right, moving on, the request for use of Sampson's Pond for bass tournament by Cranbog Hogs
I'm just,
on March 30th, 2013.
I just need to.
Make a motion, we accept that permit, or grant that permit.
Put that on hold while Ms. Hewens takes a break. And Mr. Franny takes a break.
Looks like we're taking a 5-minute break.
All right, everybody in the audience, get up and stretch, take a 5-minute break. We'll be back.
Have some more Pepsi to jazz me up.
Convene the board meeting.
Seems weird looking up here.
Yeah.
Is he even, there's no more tape in it, so I can just speak freely.
Even the cameraman left?
Yeah.
Oh, gee.
This should sound like an auction now for the
Yeah.
Should zip right through this, get everybody home. Do it. All right, we have the request for the use of Sampson's Pond for bass tournament by Cranbog Hogs on March 30th, 2013.
Motion to approve.
And by Cape Cod Bass for June 9th, 2013.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, it's unanimous. Okay, we need to establish, Rick, is this the deadline for warrant articles for town meeting and scheduling of town meeting?
Yes, historically, we've given department heads the month of February to submit any articles they have for us. It's been fairly consistent. People are used to that. So if you would kindly do that, we would appreciate it and get that notice out to departments ASAP.
The end of February?
What's the date?
So this,
The 28th of February? Is that what you're-
That's still the last day of February, Ms. Hewens.
It's not a leap year this year?
Sometimes it isn't.
Yeah,
Sorry.
she's right. All right, we have a recommendation for establishing a cutoff date of February 28th, 2013 on all articles. Can you hear me, ladies? Okay, all right.
A motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve,
Second.
and we have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Opposed? The motion is unanimous.
In-
Excuse me, Mr. Forrester?
Could you please give us that date? I couldn't hear it.
February 28th is the deadline for warrant articles for town meeting. Okay.
And, Mr. Chairman, if you could hold off on scheduling a town meeting date till we get clarification from the school on one of two dates, so we don't have those exactly. Usually it's the end of May, usually the beginning of June, but we'll have to bring that back at your next meeting.
And we'll double check to make sure there's no other activities going on at that time.
We'll do our best, right? Might be a good way to get people in, though.
Okay. All right, we're looking at the approval of minutes, October 23rd, December 18th, and January 8th. Do we want to take these separately or?
Package?
Yes, let's do them separately.
Okay, how about if we start with October 23rd?
I make a motion, we accept the October 23rd minutes.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second.
Can I,
Any discussion?
on the citizens' participation, it just seems a lot of people come up on the citizen participation. They're not even listed on the agenda. And we're including a lot of detail about what they had to say, like,
Speak into the mic, Jack.
Resident John Ranella read a prepared statement regarding the treatment of Bruce Kaiser, chairman of the audit committee that recently disbanded at the member of the Board of Selectmen's meeting. I think that sentence should be enough. That should be sufficient.
What date are we looking at, Mr. Chairman?
October 23rd.
Is that
And
on
it has
October?
addended in there.
It's not on this.
Well, the
Those
unfortunate
haven't
thing
changed.
is that it's in his prepared statement, which is also part of
Well,
the
he
record.
wasn't registered to be, he wasn't on, you had some concerns about the open meeting. This is just citizens' participation.
The chairman
They're
allowed
not
him
even
to
in there.
speak.
If
The
I
chairman
could
allowed him to speak.
just bring up, I mean, that's October, it's January.
October 23rd. What I'm saying is that we should only have brief references to people that speak in front of us when they're not on the agenda. They're under citizens' participation.
Well, you know something, Jack, we can make a motion on that and fix that, but right now, let's vote on these. This is,
That won't disappoint Elaine, by the way, going forward, just
Yes.
so.
Well, I just think there's too much detail in there.
Okay.
But it was there, it was in his statement.
that's fine. It's critical to me. Everybody knows that, so I can handle it. I got big shoulders.
I just noticed that under citizens' participation, it says resident John Ranella read a prepared statement addended.
Addended shouldn't be in there. That gives his whole letter in there that was
Yeah.
never submitted to anybody.
But I don't have it.
If I may, Mr. Chair, Elaine will probably be getting this. What we've been instructed to do is to write a list of the articles that were discussed at a meeting, and you list them. You don't specifically have to addend them, but they do need to be in the file. So this wasn't Elaine's minutes, I know
Well,
that.
I would like to strike addended out of there.
I agree with that. I mean, why are we putting addendums to citizens' participation?
Well, whatever document was listed as a prepared statement goes into the file, according to
Yeah.
the legal advice I've received.
Right, what I can't tell you, because obviously Gene did these minutes in October, whether or not that was submitted by John specifically to Gene after the meeting. A lot of people will give their prepared statements. So if that's the case, it would be on file in the office.
Yeah, well, he should be listed under citizens' participation if he wants to have, his documents recorded there. But I think we should just keep it brief and not add all this information in there.
Well, again, Mr. Franey, the chairman, it was his right to allow people to speak at citizens' participation.
And he did. He allowed them to
correct.
speak.
So it
But
needs to
we
be in the
don't have to
minutes.
include his prepared statement as a document. I'm just making a motion that we take that out of there.
Well, actually, there's already a motion on the table.
Yeah, I think that's something we would have to put on a future agenda, Jack. I don't think we could do that tonight because it's not listed. So if we want to add that to the next selectmen's meeting to vote on what's in the minutes.
Yeah, under citizens' participation, we should clarify a little
Okay.
bit more.
All right. Elaine, can you make sure that that's on the next agenda there? Thank you. In the meantime, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'm opposed to.
Okay. 3-2.
In favor?
Yes, to accept the minutes.
Or should I abstain because it's about me?
I don't know what you should do, Mr. Chairman.
Then it would be
You
2-2.
allowed him to speak.
Then it would be 2-2 and a failure.
After about 4 agendas, I'd just like something approved.
Look, I don't want this to drag on longer than the other meeting, please. Okay, next on is December 18th.
Mr. Chair, I have to say that I got the revised edition, and again, this is not Elaine's fault. I know she's stressed out over there since we don't have an assistant town administrator, but I just got the December 18th and January 8th minutes I think she sent them to us this morning. I was at work this morning, so I haven't had a chance to look at either one of them.
Okay, so you would like to table these?
That would be fine.
If we could, I'd
Okay.
really appreciate it.
I don't think that's unreasonable.
No, and I had made changes that
Do we have a
she,
second
of
on
course,
that?
didn't have time to do.
Second.
At least we're into winter now.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, it's not
All
that.
right, we'll get past Christmas sometime before the next one. How's that?
Good.
You know how bureaucracies and governments move, right, at a snail's pace?
Bureaucracy in action.
This is an example.
Why do we want to be different?
To table?
Bureaucracy in action.
Did we have a motion and a second on that already?
I'd like to make a motion to table those two minutes.
Okay. Ms. Hewens made a motion to table.
Second.
Ms. Maroney seconded it. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 4-1-0. There's always one in every
Now
crowd.
you're just having fun. That's not.
Okay, citizens' participation. Does anybody have anything out there? Please step up to the microphone.
Feel obliged.
Keep it to a reasonable length of time, please. State your name and your address.
Anne Marie Olson, 12 South Meadow Road. I sat here this evening and I watched what went on before me. I noticed I was here at 6:25, came in and took a seat. The auditorium maybe had 15 people in it. As we got closer to 7 o'clock, it started to fill up because the school issue was on the board. Now, as a taxpayer in the town of Carver, everything that happens in the town is important to us, including the finances, where the money goes, how it's spent, how we can afford it. The school issue is a very heavy, hard-hitting issue for every citizen in the town of Carver. And what I saw tonight, and I would like to say that I am proud of the way that the Selectmen handled the meeting and the vote that was taken. And the reason I say that is because you have something in front of you people have not read. You're going to take a vote on it. Sitting in the audience and listening, I knew for a fact that if this went before the public in the town, it was going to be voted down again. Now, from what I saw, Helen spoke to the school committee, and from my understanding, they were working together, which was heartwarming. We're getting somewhere. We're participating. This is where we want to go. Because of the situation in Connecticut, we bring it to the forefront. I have to share something with this committee. The last meeting that you had, there was a young woman who was in tears because she said to me, my child goes to that school and the roof can fall down any day. I looked at her and I said, that is not true. I have 2 babies that go to that school, and if that were true, I said this town would be in an uproar. My concern at that time, as I had said to her, was the safety of every child, every teacher, every custodian, anybody that is in that building because of what transpired in Connecticut. I said to her, what are you going to do if someone approaches that building with a rifle? She turned to me and said, the roof coming down on my son's head is more important. Now that is a fact. I was rather taken back and said, did you hear what you said? Because she is so frightened that the structure of that building is going to come down on the children. I think it is a disservice to the people in this town not to have the facts from the structure of that building on up to what it is going to cost to repair it or replace it, whether it's going to be rebuilt in the position where it is now or in another area. These are questions that I feel need to be brought before the town. I just had to get this off my chest. It has been bothering me. There is a divide in this town. But it's because we are hearing rumors, and it needs to stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Hello again.
Hello, Amanda.
So, Amanda Wentworth, 31 Weston Street. My question is, I just want to see, I know that you guys were discussing, but I couldn't hear all of it, about possibly talking about this at the next Selectmen's meeting and putting together a question that maybe everybody understands rather than the current question that we have. So is that what the plan is? Or are we going forward with this? Or am I going to continue with what I'm doing?
I haven't talked to anybody about anything for the next Selectmen's meeting other than minutes of meetings. So I would strongly urge you to go forward with what you're doing.
Go ahead.
Heather, you can go up to the mic and speak. Come on.
I think what we're trying to, so I'm Heather Sepulveda. I think what we're trying to say is, can we be put on the agenda for the next meeting to vote on a question that everybody can agree upon to be put on the ballot in April? Because if tonight that the question, the wording of the question was what was tripping everyone up, can we put a question on that everybody can agree on?
Well, I think there was multiple issues.
So we're not willing to be able to look at a generalized question?
No, I would continue with your petition.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think what they're looking for, and I had spoken to them briefly about it, was maybe arriving at some sort of a compromise. So we get something that's clear cut that the whole town can tie into, instead of just, recycling the question from 2 years ago. Let's try and all get together and see what we can do for the future. But that's up to you to put whatever you want to put on the agenda, but and it might not be the next meeting, but it could be a meeting after that.
I don't want to continue to string people along here, Jack, from meeting to meeting, okay? There's multiple issues here, and one of the big ones is a financing mechanism to take care of this. So I don't see hashing this out 2 weeks from now, the same conversation is going to change anything.
But I think if 2 weeks from now, we could vote on a more generalized question to put on the ballot to allow the
Are
town
you
of
going to have a
Carver to
recommended
vote.
budget for us, how we're going to do that, how we're going to pay for the school in 2 weeks?
No, we're not going to have a recommended budget,
Okay.
but that's, you voted no because of that reason. And Mr. Franny has made it very clear that that wasn't his reason, that he just didn't like the wording of this particular question, which is how this has come back up. So if we need to continue with the petition, I have absolutely no problem doing that. I will take the time to get that done. That's absolutely fine. So I'll continue with this petition, I'll get this into the town clerk, and we'll just vote on it in April, and that's it.
That's what I would suggest.
Perfect. That's works for me.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, I would suggest that too.
Maybe I wonder if I can contribute here.
Go right ahead.
The school building study committee, no matter what we voted or whatever, I think we need to get that building committee together to work out whatever we need to do here.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I said that to Mr. Shores and Mr. Pratt, so. I don't think we should stop working on it.
Yep.
It's just going to take a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get to the middle of the road. So,
Mr. Chairman, may I?
I think Mr. Fortier was at
Oh,
the
I'm
mic
sorry.
before
I
you, so I'll
apologize.
give him a shot.
Hi, actually, my name is Noah Paisel.
Oh, jeez,
That's all right.
my eyes are going, I'm sorry.
First time, so.
I thought you were John Fortier on a diet.
From
Bulking up at the gym.
See if I can work.
84 Plymouth Street in Carver,
Okay.
Massachusetts.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. I just wanted to give, I was
Can you
heartened-
speak into the microphone?
Sure. I was heartened by all the rhetoric about working together and all this, but actions really have significance, and they speak really loudly. In some ways, what was brought to the floor today was a gesture, and the gesture was, do you think it would be okay for us to pursue a statement of interest? It's a very simple, I can't really calculate what the cost of that would be, but it seems like I didn't sense a whole lot of goodwill, or even, I didn't see in action what was being given a lot of rhetoric, and that is the idea that we'd work together. There was basically a vote that I thought was rather abrupt. There was a lot of dialogue that was not actually on the agenda about finance, which was specifically not on the agenda, and there was no suggestions for how to move further beyond that, other than a bunch of hand-waving.
Maybe I can answer your question. I think Ms. Maroney addressed it. back in June, there was a joint agreement between the Board of Selectmen and the school committee to establish a committee with representatives from all the other boards and committees and start to try and work on this process. Well, before that even got off the ground, this tragic, horrific incident in Connecticut occurred, and all of a sudden, everybody goes into mass hysteria and they want to fast track this thing. And, you know, that's going to disrupt the process more than anything else. Certainly, we're all concerned about the kids. And, you know, and it's not just from outside individuals. The building itself, I agree with Mr. Clark. We don't want to spend $27 million on buildings that are going to fall down and don't meet requirements. We want to move forward and get a new school. But you got to get people that have the will to sit down and rationally come to a decision as to how this is going to be financed, because we have a large community, almost 12,000 people. A significant number of those are elderly individuals living on the margins. And there's quite a few young families that are also living on the margins too. And, you know, everybody says, rah, 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 we want this, we want that, and then they get to the polls and they vote with their wallets. And we've been through this process 3 times already, and it's caused a tremendous amount of, you know, antagonism between people and groups, and, you know, separated the community. And we don't need to do that again. What we need to do is come to the community with a plan in place and say, this is it. This is the best we can do. We've squeezed everything we can out of this. We've squeezed everything we can out of this, and this is what it's going to cost you.
This is what I find interesting, is what you described here is coming up with a plan in some sort of back rooms and then presenting something to the voters. I think that you have at your disposal parents who are very interested, a school committee who's very interested, and you've got a forum for having public discussions.
Those meetings will be public.
Okay.
You know, people will be allowed to attend, and input will be sought. You know, nobody's doing this with blinders on. It's your town, it's your tax money.
Through you, Chair.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair, we've already had 2 focus groups already that the public, they were invited to, where we met with the school committee. So this, as I was mentioning earlier, we started this process, this positive process, prior to the Newtown tragedy.
Well, I would say that's true. There's been a process in place at least since I've been a resident in 2008. It's just that it hasn't really felt very inclusive or organized.
You know, it's very difficult when you schedule focus groups and meetings and stuff, and you have 35 people show up at one, 50 people at another, and then you have people come into these meetings and say, well, Jesus, why aren't we included? Well, how come we didn't know about that?
Well,
People have got to inform themselves. They have an obligation.
There's an opportunity for a retrospective because you've done these studies, and I think a retrospective of why it has failed in the past would be great.
But I mean, some of us have been working on this for years.
The general feeling, though, is that you have given up. That you've been working for years, and it's
Not in the
pretty much-
least. Not in the least.
But I'm just telling you what the, you know, what it feels like as a new parent in this community.
The vote that we took in 2011, the vote we took in 2011, that was perfect. You know, people at the first of the year had had their Social Security cut by a third. They had an extra $1,000, $2,000 in their pocket. The borrowing costs were way down, construction costs were way down, and we lost the election. There was 2,000 people on a petition. Now we're coming back. That $2,000 has been added back. The governor wants to go up on our taxes. Construction costs are up. Borrowing costs, the Congress is tinkering with doing away with tax-exempt bonds. It's going to be horrendous to do the same project over again. Why they picked that project to do is beyond me.
Well, that's just one of the many issues that have to be addressed. But, you know, as Ms. Maroney said, they were on the path. They had started meeting. Then this tragic event occurred, and all of a sudden it's fast-tracked and go, 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 go. You know what I mean? So that was the reason for the consternation tonight. That was the reason why some of the people held back on supporting that.
Just one.
Go ahead.
I'm just putting myself forth as evidence. Like, I'm a parent. I'm concerned. I'm active. I'm intelligent. I had not heard from Ms. Maroney. However, I had heard from the Concerned Parents League. So clearly, there's some resource that you're failing to tap into as you're trying to solve this problem. And I'm just suggesting maybe there is a division, but you have to figure out how to direct those other people into your tent. You know, you have to find out where they are, how come they don't find out about your meetings, and ask them to come on in.
Parent, active, and intelligent, I like that. We should get you on a committee.
The meetings were through the school committee that were held at the school. So I think it's publicized on the website. In the, you would have to speak to the school committee and how they publicized it, Noah. Thank you.
Please jump in. Who's next? Steve.
Mr. Chairman, Board of Selectmen, I want to make sure that it's understood what my intent was tonight, and it truly is not to bring us back to 2010, 2011. I really would like the Board of Selectmen to consider in the next 2 weeks, month, whichever is your pleasure, to consider putting a general non-binding question on the ballot, just asking the voters a public opinion about whether or not they will support the renovation or repairs of the existing elementary school. No commitment to the existing plan, option B3, no dollar amounts, just a public opinion. And if that's what the MSBA would like, then that's all we're going to give them, because we can't do anything else. We don't know where we want to go. We don't know what we want to spend. And I understand the position of the Board of Selectmen on the statement of interest. But I really believe that the question tonight should have been, do we direct the superintendent through the school committee to initiate the process? That there would still have been ample time between now and April 10th for the board to ask the serious question, how are we going to fund it before we submit it? Because that is key to this whole process. Because the treasurer in his letter says, if you only submit the statement of interest if you plan to fund this in the next 2 years. Well, the reality is we submitted the original statement of interest in 2006, the second one in 2008. We had to get an extension in August of 2010 when it expired. And we only were eliminated and the funding guaranteed removed in July of 2011. So if you go from the original submission to when it was finally in, it was nearly 5 years. So, and we still didn't do it. So I really, again, I will tell you right now, I will be more than happy to work with the parents on coming up with a ballot question that's general in nature so that it won't confuse the voters and is just a public opinion, a non-binding public opinion. But I would really like at least the board to consider in the next, whether it's your next meeting or the following, to just put a general ballot question on. You have until, 35 days before April 27th to actually do it. And I really would like this time for us in between to just try to unite together. I really think that whatever the work we did in 2010 and 2011 as a town has benefit today. Are there more challenges? Yes. But can we try to come together and at least do something so that it's not another 5 years? And I understand the emotions behind this. I understand the anger. I share it. More frustration than anything.
Steve, anything else to add? Anything else to add? No?
No, thank you.
We're recycling information over and over again. I think what you could do is you could work with that parents group there and put together a question for their petition article.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just say, whatever question is ultimately approved, there's already a petition article, but if there's going to be some compromise, it should be approved by MSBA. I mean, it's something, or it might not be of any value.
But just so I understand, the petition that they're going for would be the language from before,
Well, that's why I'm suggesting Steve work with them.
Can they change?
They can't change the
Because
question
they've
that's
already-
currently on the
right.
petition that they have signatures for.
Exactly.
If there's any change in the future, that has to be approved by the MSBA.
Yeah.
Right. The question that I believe I've seen was what was submitted 2 years ago and approved by MSBA. So, again, keep in mind, the point here is an expression of support by the town, period. There's no other requirement.
All right, who was next, ladies? I don't want any fighting.
Sarah Baker, 7 Rogers Street. I didn't plan on speaking at all, and I feel very strongly. If we see, we come here tonight, we hear all this about unity. There is a divide amongst you. There will continue to be a divide amongst the people out here if we can't see unity up there. I believe this truly.
You know what democracy is all about, right?
Well, okay, and then I hear people say that they have babies in the school, and yes, maybe Newtown, Connecticut was the catalyst for people to come here
Right.
and to feel strongly and to want to push the school forward.
Sure.
There are other problems in that school aside from, we all know, we've heard it from you, we've heard it from people on Fix Carver, if somebody's going to get in there, they're going to get in there. We get that. My daughter is a special needs student and has her special therapies in a janitor's closet. Totally unacceptable.
I agree.
Totally unacceptable. But we can't get anyone in the school to fix that or fund it or make sure that, special needs kid, my daughter can't even speak. And she has to go have her therapies in a janitor's closet. She can't tell me how her day went. That's nobody's problem up there, but we can't provide her with what she needs to get better. So we're going to just keep, passing it on year to year, and it's not going to get built.
Well, I think what you need to do is you need to focus your attention on getting people to the table to agree on a financial plan. I think
Absolutely, but like Liz Sorrell said, it's square footage. We don't even meet that. We can't have the appropriate classrooms because we don't even meet square footage per child.
We all agree with you, ma'am.
It's deficient.
We're not disagreeing with you.
Yeah, but we talked about everybody coming to an agreement and working together and bending some. I didn't see anybody bend tonight. I heard everyone say no.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. You didn't see anybody bend.
Yeah, you included.
So I think it's not just the Board of Selectmen. I think you need to take a look at
We're more than
everybody
happy to
involved.
bend. I'm not, you know what?
All right, ladies, you address me, please.
Okay, well, you can tell them to address you while they're
They
saying
will.
things
They
too.
will. Did you have something else you wanted to add?
No, there is no unity up there. I feel like the more that there is no coming together up there, you're not going to find the people out here coming together. I think that they think just because we're young.
I think you're looking for a perfect world, and it doesn't exist.
No, but I think that they think because we're young, I'm saying that I can afford the tax increase. Not necessarily. I don't think anybody can say what my financial situation is.
Right. And conversely, you don't know what theirs is either.
Absolutely, and I'm not saying that I need to know what their situation is, but yes, we all need to come together. That includes the people on the board, need to come together to get this done.
Well, I think what you need to do is put some pressure on all the parties involved to get them to the table.
We're trying to put
to
pressure.
continue the meetings and try and get something resolved.
We're asking questions. We're asking if we can be put on the agenda at the next Selectmen meeting, and you're telling us just to follow on what we're doing.
We're not going to rehash this over and over and over again.
Then I guess I'm finished.
You have a means to your end, which is a petition article for town meeting. And you are certainly welcome to pursue that.
And we will.
They have allegedly the voters right now. 1,000 signatures?
Just about.
You only need 10%, right? 800 and something?
I only need 774.
There you go. And she's got 1,000, so she's ready to go.
Question's going on the ballot either way. That's not the question here.
And that's fine.
We just wanted to do it, we wanted to do it so everyone was, working together.
Could you use the microphone, Amanda?
Yeah.
I was just saying that the point of this coming here was so, we could all work together. And I just want to remind you, when I first came up and spoke this evening, the first thing that I said was that we are willing to bend. I didn't say that the parents are saying this is what we want, it needs to be done this way. The point of us coming forward tonight was just to get this non-binding question on. That was it. And I spoke with you, and I've spoken to a couple other members of the board. We are willing to bend and move things as much as we need to make it so it works for everybody.
Amanda, then have them come forward with some proposals.
We don't need to come forward for proposals until we're going to a binding. All we want right now is to get a non-binding back on.
All we want. Who's this about? We have a community of 12,000 people.
Do you want to know who it's about? It's about my 2 children. That's what it's about. And everybody else's children. It isn't about you. It's not about Jack. It's not about anybody. It's about the children. And everybody's lost sight of this.
You're making it about us. You're making this
No,
personal.
you're making it about you.
You're making this personal. Thank you very much.
Well-
Sir, you're up next.
Sir? Dawn Pedavani, 82 Rochester Road. I keep hearing about division, and I just want to give my perspective on, we heard Ron Clark saying all the needs of the town, all the millions it's going to cost, plus the millions of the school. And yet when we go to town meeting and Mr. Carter or Jack Franey asks to put money in a town stabilization fund, all we get is no. We haven't put any money into that fund. And I think that doesn't, behoove us as a community to go forward with anything. Nobody's willing to put any money into that fund.
That's not true.
Yes.
There is money in the fund.
Yes, but a lot of it was voted down at town meeting.
Yeah, well, yeah. You know what, in the interest of citizen participation, Mr. Chairman, I'll not go there.
We haven't done as good a job with that as we should have.
No.
Because
mean,
of competing interests.
they want a police station, they want a school, they want a fire station, but nobody's willing to put any money into that fund.
Mr. Chairman,
Some is in
the general problem, as you are well aware of, and as everybody here is, when you're going to pit interests against themselves, when somebody would suggest that you're going to cut 20 teachers, and this is an example, this is not a specific, or when you're going to cut the school $400,000 in order to put money in a fund to build the school. You're talking about a school system that's down about 60 teachers over the last decade. You're talking about a school system that's $1,200 per student below the state average in the lower echelon. This is what we're talking about. We're not talking about, cutting the fat out of the school budget. I don't think that's not what we're talking about here. So, and one of the things that I know all of us, none of us like, is when people second guess what the people did prior, because the people come and you can't presume after the fact that they didn't know what they were doing. And I would suggest that's the same for the votes that were taken by the public regarding the school. It would be arrogant for me to suggest, even though I wished they voted for those projects, that they didn't know what they were doing. They knew what they were doing. I just don't like what they did. That doesn't mean they won't do something else in the future. So I think we have to stop second guessing the decisions people make in the past, because I think they're made in good faith.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Jack.
I don't think you can chastise the voters or the taxpayers, because our ability to pay, we're below the state average in our median income. And I think we stretch our dollar as much as we can. There's a ed reform formula, as you know, and we're over that. So, the fact that maybe $1,200 per student less isn't the fault of these people. They're trying the best that they can try. And what we need to do is come up with some sort of formula that we're going to support the school, because if we don't, we have that list from the school committee in the capital outlay, $27 million, that we're going to have to start paying 100% out of our pockets.
All is open to any recommendations. How we resolve the problem. We'll solicit input from everybody. Nobody's excluded. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Garrett Olson, 12 South Middle Road. I came here tonight because I wanted to hear the discussions. I don't get the opportunity to go to all the meetings. I try to catch them on CCAT when I can. I came because I spoke at a town meeting, I believe about a year ago, when we were discussing the question going on the ballot. And we had a couple of options, if memory serves, that were on the warrant. We had the one ballot question that was being asked to be considered that was similar to what we were discussing tonight. There was a second option that was put up that was pulled back. Nobody wanted to deal with it. And I asked the superintendent at the time, I said, if we don't pass this again tonight, because my gut told me it wasn't going to get passed, because too many people were concerned about the financial aspect. That's going to leave us in a lurch, and we're going to lose another year of an opportunity to find a way to make this happen. I've had the pleasure of volunteering at the school. I have children in the school. I have seen the condition of the school. I've seen the magic that those professionals perform every day with the limited resources they have. There is no gray area. We've got some of the best professionals teaching in this town, and they're doing it at a challenge. No gray area. In my opinion, walking around, standing in line at Dunkin' Donuts, chatting with different people, there is no doubt in my mind that every person in this town, whether they have children or not, would like to see a new school building. I would love it. I'd love to see it before my kids are actually out of the school. But the fact of the matter is, the petition will come forth, they'll get that on the ballot, it more than likely won't pass, and we're in the same boat again. I was hoping perhaps we might find a way tonight to amend that so we could find a way to start these conversations. I was sitting, I was listening, I wasn't going to say anything, but I have to admit it, and it may not be proper decorum in this forum, but I've had enough. I've been here one night. I walk up during the break, I hear people addressing other people disrespectfully. All sides of the boards. I hear people in the crowd on both sides making comments, calling people names under their breath. This is the town of Carver? This is how we want to have ourselves perceived? I'm here just once, and I've already had enough. Everybody claims they're here for the kids. Everybody claims they're here for the future. Ruin yourselves now with the attitudes of not working together. There's going to be no future for the kids to inherit. I'm fed up. I apologize for raising my voice. But the time for growing up and proving to our children in this town that we care about our future is by losing the attitudes, no matter how frustrated we get, and maintain simple respect, talking to one another, talking back and forth. The petition's going to go through. It should be on the ballot. I don't think it's going to pass. With that being said, I implore the board, I implore our citizens here at home, let's think about this. When you go out and you do things in your home, do you buy the new car and then figure out how you're going to pay for it? Do you buy the house and then ask for a mortgage? Let's get a financial plan. We've got so much passion on both sides. Can't we get it filtered into finding a way to make it work? We've lost 3 years now because we tried the same question over and over again. The people are there. The desire is there. I want a new school. I also want to pay my bills. I also want to pay my taxes. I want to give my children the best education possible. And you know what, Mr. Chairman? This town has the ability to do it because the professionals in that building can do it. I've seen it happen. I've seen little children in kindergarten. They've blown me away with their ability to read at the end of the year. There's no gray area there. We just need to get our people together in this town and treat each other with respect. Take that passion, and instead of calling each other names and being disrespectful, find a way to honestly come together and find a way to finance the car before you buy it. Thank you.
Very well said. Okay. Anybody else? We're going to wrap this up? Okay. Seeing no other citizens' participation, we'll move on. Town administrator notes.
You'll be happy to hear I've crossed some things off the list in the interest of time, Mr. Chairman, but two things I will mention. Number one, that we have Helen and Jack and I have worked with to interview some candidates for town accountant. That process is going to continue. In fact, before you leave tonight, if I could get your schedule, I've got to make a quick amendment. So hopefully within a couple of weeks we'll have some news on that front. The other thing is later this week I'll be meeting with our engineering firm, with the people at DEP, to see if we can get some relief from some of the DEP requirements on our costs associated with the pump and treat station up on Lakenham Drive. That's really, unfortunately, drives most of the costs of our landfill budget. We're hoping that because of the testing results over a period of time, we can lower those costs. So I'll keep my fingers crossed, and hopefully I'll have some good news for you in the next month, in the months ahead, if we can get that reviewed. So that's all, I guess, for tonight.
Thank you. Helen, you want to kick it off? Selectmen's notes?
I don't have much to say, except I thank the whole community, especially the parents that are becoming more actively involved in the school project, and from my heart, I just really believe that we are making progress from the start of us meeting with the school committee and putting all of the heads together to get the plan going, and we're all in it together. And I am sad that people feel that this town is divided. I am one that agrees with that, but hopefully as we work through this project, more people are aware and in tune to what's going on now. So I think you're going to see that this vote tonight may not have made everybody happy, but I really believe that you're going to see in a few months, you're going to say, yes, they are working together. The more we have these joint meetings. So, and I do have my office hours if you want to come and share your thoughts to me individually, one-on-one, on Tuesday evenings at 6:30. This coming Tuesday, I do have an appointment scheduled with someone already, so if you want to meet at approximately 7 o'clock on Tuesday evening, I'll be happy to do that. Or on Frosty Dog, I have a meeting scheduled with the resident at 11 o'clock, but if you're interested in coming and speaking to me one-on-one, I'd be happy to chat with you. I'll stay longer than normal at the Frosty Dog, but I'd probably not get there probably till like 11:45 because I'll be chatting with another resident. Because I'm in this for you, this is why I got involved. You may not appreciate on the onset my decisions, but I hope in the long term you will look back and say that I was thinking of the whole community. So, thank you.
Dick?
As usual, I'm appealing to the folks out there on the food pantry. Bring some food to the Council for the Aging or the library for those folks that come in that really are needy. I would like to push forward however we do this with this school building study committee. Got to start them. Got to get them rolling now. It goes along with what you spoke of on those meetings with the school committee, but we can't sit on it, whether we voted it or not tonight. We still got to get this committee together and say, okay, if we need this financial plan, who's willing to give a little here and who's willing to give a little there? And we got to come to that middle spot where we can get a school. And yes, respect that gentleman that just spoke. We need to keep respecting each other's point of view and allow each other to speak without calling each other names or anything. I can give you a story. Weston's was one of the Westons when the Governor John Carver School was in the planning, and they had a town meeting, and they voted the Governor John Carver School down. And the folks that voted it down left, and Mr. Weston brought up the reconsideration, and they voted it, and the people that had left were furious at him at the coffee shop, but they all got along. So that's a true story.
Thank you, Dick. Sarah?
Thank you. I just wanted to thank, everyone who was part of this process tonight, and the commitment that people have made here tonight to move forward. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Jack?
Yeah, I too want to thank everyone that was involved. Like Mike said, this is a democracy. But one fact remains is that we have to replace that school one way or the other. So we have to come up with a plan somehow to do this that's going to be satisfactory to the majority of the people in town. We can't win this by one vote. We got to win it by a supermajority so that we know that the town will embrace this. The other thing I want to say is that the last day to pay your taxes as tax collector is February 1st. It falls on a Friday. We usually close at noontime, but we're going to keep the office open till 4 for those people that procrastinate.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, but I just have to correct that. The vote for the ballot petition question does not need a supermajority.
Well,
I'm sorry, that is simply
no.
incorrect. You may want there to be a supermajority, and so may
No.
I,
Well,
but it doesn't require one. I just want to be sure people at home know
You
that.
can win by one vote, but what I'm getting at
That's
is
correct.
we don't want to be divided anymore. We want to be one community. So let's all get out and vote for that. And let's make it affordable for everyone. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't like being corrected like that.
All right. I too want to thank everybody that came out tonight. I wonder where the rest of the 8,500 registered voters are, but you know, this is how it works, unfortunately. So, but anyways, there's going to be a lot of emotion tied up in this. We're all stakeholders, but you got a variety of points of view. You're not going to please everybody, and we may have to call in a mediator, maybe to get everybody at the same table and to agree on something. But anyhow, we'll keep working at it. We're not going to give up. We'll just keep hammering away until we try and arrive at some kind of a solution. So keep putting the pressure on us. Put the pressure on the school. Put the pressure on the finance committee. Okay? You got to keep it up. That's what's going to get this done. So you're going to force the issue. Get the voters out, and they'll tell us what they want. And that's what democracy is all about. Not threatening people, not trying to intimidate people, not trying to bully people. Democracy. Okay. Having said that, God bless you. God bless the town of Carver. God bless the United States of America. Keep our soldiers, sailor, airmen, and Marines in your thoughts and prayers. And have a good night. Thank you.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?